Good morning, everyone. Today is day 10 of the one and only ORAT Bootcamp. I can tell you right now, I will never, ever, 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 ever do a 10-day bootcamp again. It was fun. I'm very happy all of you enjoyed the journey with me. But this was a one and done for me. I thought this might be the case. I may do other boot camps in the future, but I can promise you they will never be 10 days again. That's a lot of time commitment. It took up a lot of my headspace. And I'm happy to do this one time. I think it was the right thing to do. I have no real plans for day 10. It is the capstone. We've been through a lot together. We've obviously spent a lot of time on the buy box. We've spent multiple days on your spreadsheets. We've talked about learning in your local market, potentially looking at other markets. We've talked about ADUs. We've talked about raising capital, house hacking. We have done so many things together. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight that we have three gentlemen here today that were parts of different days. We have the lumberjack landlord, Dion Talk, and Millennial Mike, right? We call ourselves the four Avengers of real estate. They are huge, components of One Rental at a Time. And these guys all said yes to being a part of day 10. So we are happy to have them here. Let's just do a quick introduction, just in case you don't remember who they are. But Mr. Lumberjack, since you're on my screen, quick introduction, and we'll move
I'm
on.
Matt the Lumberjack Landlord, as you see on all of our videos. And happy to be here with you guys today and answer any questions that you have.
And obviously where Matt really shines, he shines in multiple areas, obviously, but we always talk about Matt being the guy on the field, right? Calling plays, right? He has something he calls, oh, blank, I'm a landlord. And you may have questions about that. And he was gracious enough to come here and go into those details. We'll go to Dion next. Dion, how you doing?
Howdy. Doing good. I'm excited to be here. My goal is to find people as lazy as I am.
I'm sure that's possible.
That's a goal we all strive for, frankly. To continue the theme, Dion actually has the hardest job, or at least that's what we talk about. Maybe not on this call or people watching it, because you obviously are already committed. You're in the arena. But Dion is talking to and interacting with the folks in the stadium, right? They are throwing stones. They're drunk. They're just Crash Bro followers or whatever. They just don't believe it's possible. Dion has also been very instrumental in helping me understand that my 3 steps to wealth really has a step 0. Which I need to hone out and move forward on. So Dion, thank you for being here. And last but not least, Mr. Millennial Mike, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here. And mostly I'm excited to hopefully hear that some of these participants in your class picked up a rental property or got an offer in. I know at least one, Senya, who's here, has purchased in just the last 2 months 2, and now she's under contract on number 3. So
that's awesome.
Excited to hear those stories.
Nice work, Senya. I believe I thought did I send 2 cards to Senya or just one? I may need to send another one. I don't remember. I know I did that sometime this week. So those are who we are, the 4 Avengers of real estate. We are here to help. As always, please raise your hands and we will get to your questions. I will riff for about 5 to 10 minutes, but please raise your hands and we will just answer any and all questions going forward. So why don't we go back to Millennial Mike and the story of Senya. Millennial Mike, I believe Senya reached out to you, if I understand the story, kind of got some help coaching. Why don't you just talk about being a resource, because that's something you do for lots of folks.
Sure. So so Senya started following Zuber, I believe, 1.5 to 2 years ago, found my channel through him. She was not super interested in investing in New York for a host of different reasons.
For a plethora of reasons.
And so she said she was interested and she was considering investing in an out-of-state market, which is what I specialize in, doing long distance or out-of-state real estate investing. And she had, been trying to build up the courage, and she was doing that by watching our videos and getting to know the idea of investing in real estate. And she and I started talking about investing in Gary, Indiana. And after explaining to her like what her buy box should be in Gary, Indiana, she used the buy box theory to develop one for Indiana. She put 2 offers in just the last, I think, 6 to 8 weeks. It's been 2 offers in, both were accepted. She's closed on one. I think the other one's closing in a couple of days. And then now she's officially got a third property that she's partnering with me and a couple of other people. We're all going to go in on a 6-unit building together. So we're doing that. But yeah, she's definitely taken the steps and made the right choices. And she did it mostly by taking my advice when it comes to building off other people's team. Because if you ask Senya, who is your property manager, who are your contractors, who are your everything? Well, guess who she stole them from? Me. And that's what I tell people to do. Steal people's teams from more successful investors. And that way you skip to the front of the line.
Yeah, no, I think that's wise advice. And again, something that's always caught my attention about out-of-state investing is people try to build it themselves. And that's kind of hit or miss. And I just love the idea of finding that, they talk about the core 4 a lot on Bigger Pockets. For me, it all starts with number 5, which is that, go find that local investor and hopefully a couple of them that are already successful. That's what I think is missed a lot about out of state, out of area, frankly, even in your backyard, is there are people doing it successfully today. There's idea that, no one has done it before. That's just not real estate. Real estate investing has been tried and true for, hundreds of years. So finding people that have done it before is pretty cool. So, I don't see anybody's hands raised yet. You can raise your hands and ask these 3 fine gentlemen questions. I'm sure you have them. Dion, why don't we talk to you as I try to buy some time for some folks and talk about how you adjusted your buy box, right? You had been in one buy box for quite a while. You entertained the idea of buying something in Portugal. That didn't go well. You came back. You're like, I am gonna buy something, local. Then you had to go a half hour further. So talk about how you adjusted your buy box and then, what that opened up.
So I'll make this quick because I see some hands coming up. My live stream this last Tuesday, was basically targeted because of today. It's the real estate trap. People who learn what their market, their asset class, they've studied, they look at deals, and then they don't take action. So if there's somebody who took a 10-day boot camp, stretched out over all this time, and you have all this knowledge now, the most important thing is to take action and to understand the difference between outcome and output goals, right? Yep. Outcome is I want to buy a rental. Output is I want to look at least 2 properties a day. You can control that, can't control the outcome.
Correct.
So the reason I shifted my strategy is, and I think it comes from working in law enforcement, right? That and a police officer can't show up at a crime scene and go, I think this is what happened. Let me find the evidence to support it. Right? That tends to be what happens on all your 60-minute TV shows where they solve a case in one day. But you look at the evidence and then you form a theory off the evidence, but you have to be able to adjust the theory. So first it was, I wanted to buy single-family houses because I understood that I owned one, bought one as a home buyer, not as an investor, but they don't cash flow. I studied for over a year to realize there's no way I'm going to find, I still in a decade haven't seen one that cash flows in my area. So I switched to small multifamily. Went to Portugal as I was, retiring and thinking of buying out of country, and learned that if you buy in one country, you're trapped in that country. Instead of buying an asset in the US that produces cash flow that you can use to travel, was more freeing. And then the laws and regulations in Portugal were so wishy-washy, I knew I'd be the one caught for breaking the law. By looking at the evidence of what I wanted to do, I adjusted my strategy based on the reality of what was going on. So if you started this boot camp and you think, here's what I want to do, I want to take the boot camp to learn how to do it, look at the evidence of your market, your asset class, what's changed in the last couple of months, and then make sure you're adjusting your strategy, not just on a whim. Don't chase 5 rabbits, right? Just don't think, oh, that looks cool, I'll try that, that looks cool. But if you tried for several weeks or months and realized what I'm trying to do isn't working, what can I change? And that's how I ended up with my last purchase here in the US of expanding out 30 minutes, realizing that remote work has people working further out from the central hubs of where the jobs are, but they can't buy because they're afraid of their employer calling them back into the office. So I went 30 more minutes out. Rents have pushed up because there's more rental demand, but prices haven't pushed up yet. And so I'm not saying every market's like that, but something in your market is shifting. And if you can kind of watch the evidence before the other people figure it out and make your decisions, I think you have a better chance of getting ahead.
Awesome. Matt, the lumberjack, we're going to go to you first, and then we'll go to Karen. Karen's hands up first. Matt, I want to talk about your experience over the last, I think it's been 18 months, maybe 24 months. Time flies when you're having fun. You started doing Section 8 tenants, right? And you've had some stress, but overall, what do you see as the difference between a Section 8 tenant? You're the guy on the ground versus a cash tenant. If you were getting your first rental, would you go one or the other? Would it matter? Any thoughts on that now that you've been doing it a while?
I mean, we changed our portfolio complexion from 0% Section 8 to now about almost 20% Section 8. You have 80% of my phone calls out of my 137 units, even though they're only 20% of my portfolio, 80% of my phone calls are from those Section 8 tenants. There's absolutely an attitude of entitlement with them based on my, now experience. It's not a feeling, it's factual, right? They're numbers, they can't be argued. And so what I would say is that, still sticking, whoever funds that tenant, it still matters their credit score. Their credit score still absolutely matters. Because as things change, as things shift, we don't include any utilities. And so you want to make sure that they're able to pay the gas bill and that they're able to pay that sort of stuff. And up in our area where it's cold, that can be, if they aren't used to paying that bill, we've seen them get a $500 gas bill because they wanted to keep it on 75 degrees and they had air conditioners still in the windows. And so the thing to recognize is the funding source or where the money's coming from that they pay their rent with really largely doesn't matter. However, credit score still is absolutely a thing that matters. And so I think our experience with Section 8 is I would do it, but I would do it with extreme caution. If that is your only experience as a landlord, you will likely get fatigued pretty quickly. Because it really does matter. There is paperwork, there is process. It really does matter which housing authority you're working with. We have one that I won't ever work with again. We have two that it's kind of hit or miss depending on which HCV specialist, housing choice voucher specialist we get there. And then we have one that we literally, I call them weekly. Do you have anybody with a new voucher? Let's get them an application. What are they looking for? Let's get them an application. What you will start to find is there's a number of Section 8 authorities that no longer have vouchers. They are out of vouchers, or they also can't add to anybody. So we've seen that now. I called and they said, we're out of vouchers. We have no more money to expand our balance sheet. We're done. So no one is getting a new voucher, and they're still adding people onto the waiting list, but the waiting list has gone from 2 years to now 5 years. So that's what I would tell you about Section 8.
All right.
But the benefit of it is it does show up on the first. That's about, or the third. That's the obvious benefit.
There you go. All right, Karen, you had your hand up first. Congratulations. The floor is yours. What is your question?
You're on mute. If you click the unmute button in the upper, or Mike, if you unmute her.
I could probably do that.
Sorry about that.
You're good.
I have two questions.
Awesome.
One is, and I think I asked this once before of Dion, but if you'd all re-answer, but what do you use to advertise your rentals and collect rent?
Very cool. Dion? Oh, Dion's on mute now. Come on, man. You're a professional.
Come on, rookie. Let's go.
So to start advertising, I was using cozy.co, which was purchased by apartments.com. It's free for the owner, $45 fee for the applicants. Zillow is a $38 fee for the applicants and seem to have more traction in my area. So you want to try both of those to figure out which one gets the most attention. And then recently I've switched to Hemlane. So I've got 4 properties on Hemlane. Now I'm transitioning tenants over as I have tenant turnover or buy new properties. And it advertises on 30 properties or 30 platforms. I put the information in once, puts it out on 30 things. I only like the ones when you're posting and you only have a few rentals that are free for the owner. You shouldn't be paying for a service. There's plenty of demand to do that. And then for collecting rents, I have 3 rules when it comes to collecting rents. 1, I want it to be easy on the tenant. That helps limit tenant turnover. So what forms of payment are tenants comfortable with? Apple Pay, Venmo, Zelle, Cash App. Right? I try to have access to as many of those as I can. Second, I want to make sure it leaves a paper trail, at least an electronic paper trail, or I'll write a receipt if I've got this one tenant who pays me in $20 bills covered in glitter every month. And he's a guy that looks just like me. So I'm not sure where the money comes from, but I just write him a receipt every month, or check. Because the third step is I want to save myself a trip to the bank. I don't want to have to go to the bank more than I have to. So if I can deposit it with an app or something, that's what I'll do. I've had some people say, don't take various forms of payment on rent because people can make a partial payment, which messes up the timeline on an eviction. And Matt talks about this often during his live streams. Send an email that says your rent is the partial payment of your rent is being held in a holding account. I'm not receiving it until it's paid in full. That doesn't extend out the eviction. So as long as you're considering those things, that's what makes me comfortable with it.
Very cool. We'll go to Mike next. Mike, what do you do?
So I self-manage only one, but I was listing on Facebook, Craigslist, and Zillow and apartments.com. And I would get tons. I mean, just a lot, like 50 applications in a 2-day period. In terms of collecting the rents, I mean, I'll accept it in whatever form the tenant wants to pay, with the exception of cash, which I would still take cash, but I would be a little bit more reluctant to take cash. Luckily, nobody ever asked, but I want to make it as easy for them to pay as possible. When it comes to collecting rents with all of my rental units that are managed by a property manager, the property manager works through that, and she accepts cash, check, and partial payments and things like that. She works with a lot of those tenants out there in the lower income area that I invest in Indiana. And you know, it's odd to have people who just make it paying their late payment part of their routine. But if they want to pay an extra $50 a month every single month, like clockwork, and never miss a payment, just always pay late, you know, I'm like, all right, sweet. So I can almost count it as extra rent, you know, which I do. But yeah, and she accepts it in multiple different forms. So, and then in terms of advertising for her, she, you know, she'll speak to Section 8. She puts it on a handful of different websites and things like that. But of just the basic ones that we've already talked about.
Matt, you do a lot of self-management. What are you doing these days?
I do only self-management. So we do Venmo, PayPal, cash, money order, check. I want to make it as easy as I possibly can to eliminate every excuse of why you didn't pay me. So we do auto draft through our property management system, which is Doorloop. Doorloop does have a fantastic option for less expensive or for fewer units, but you get all the enterprise capabilities there. So it's, you know, auto draft of the rent, but also, and they charge, I think it's only like $1.99, and you can pay that, or you can have the tenant pay that. We always tell tenants, hey, it's great to set up for the auto draft feature because $2 saves you $30. So I think it's really, you know, I want to make it as easy as I possibly can for people to pay. And when you can get extracts in Excel form from any of those different types of payment, it makes it pretty easy to get into the system. So it might take us a couple hours a month to get, you know, 400 payment units. We have 137 units or 142 paying units. But of those 142 paying units, it's like 400 people that actually pay because it's roommate situations. And so we just want to make it as easy as we can on ourselves. And so we just run the extract on the 5th. And then everything that's not in there, then we can start assessing late fees or letting people know, hey, your rent's late, pay me. But yeah, we want to make it as easy as we possibly can. To Dion's point, you have to make sure that you have an email on the ready that when you receive a partial payment on somebody that either A, they've only sent the partial payment for that month, or they were already behind the previous month and they hadn't caught up yet. You just need to make sure that every single time they send you a payment, please note that this in no way, and check your state laws. But in my state, it's as simple as letting them know in no way does this affect the current eviction in process until the debt is paid in full.
And then how do you advertise, Matt?
Advertise, we do everything on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and then if it's a higher end unit, we'll put it on Zillow.
Yeah.
Because our major part of our target market is you know, students and that sort of thing. So they're Craigslist and Facebook.
Yeah, I'm going to take that question and go one step, kind of a twist on this. In all of my rental units, the due date is the 1st. It's late on the 5th. All of those things. But I do have one tenant. They're not currently with me, but I had them for 5 or 6 years. For whatever reason, they needed change the lease to the 15th. right? We had that conversation after several months of communication. It was the one time I did change the rent due date to the 15th. Had to do that through my property manager, obviously, because I have a PM. But you know, I try to stay really firm on the first, right? I've had dozens of requests to change the dates and only done it once. We'll go back through. Matt, is everything on the first, or have you changed the due date for
We have
someone?
a couple that we've done. Yeah, we have a couple that we've done on the 15th, you know, just because we have, you know, business owners and things like that.
Yep,
And they just say,
exactly.
like, we're slammed. We have so much to do then. And so, yeah, it was fine. I don't care.
Yeah, it was exactly my case. They were a business owner. The end of the month was just not the
Exactly.
time for them. So
Exactly.
yeah, makes perfect sense. Dion, everything on the first?
No, I have one tenant. So I'll adjust the lease based on the tenant's needs too. I have one that theirs is due on the 8th, but it's the same thing. It's the day it's due, 5-day grace period.
Correct.
And then I educate the tenants that the next day, if it's past that 5-day grace period, I'm serving eviction as a favor to you.
Right. Very
To the
cool.
tenant.
Mike, ever had anybody ask for not the first?
Okay, for an extension, yeah, my property manager makes it automatically the 1st through the 5th. It's late on the 5th. So she gives a grace period just right out the gate, but immediately on the 5th, we don't extend anything else past that.
Very cool. Karen, question number 2.
Question number 2 is because I was the accidental landlord. I have a property. It's completely paid off.
Mhm.
It's not in the best area. It's outside of Fresno, but not in Fresno. And it needs, I was out there, it needs a lot of work. Every time somebody moves out, I do something, but I've put off the 2 big projects, the bathrooms and the kitchen, and it's time for them to be redone. So I can't decide whether I should just redo it because rents this year have increased significantly. So like if my tenant moved out, I could probably bring in an extra $400 a month. But I live in California, so I can't raise his rent that much.
Well,
But
hold on. Is it a single family home?
it's a townhouse.
Okay. So I again, I believe the state law has exceptions for mom and pop landlords on single units.
I thought so too. And then anyway, somebody told me no the other day, but I thought they did too. So I will research it again.
Talk to an attorney. Just literally
Yeah.
call an attorney. You should always have an attorney on retainer that knows real estate law for your state. If you're
Yeah, so I have a bunch. So I think there is. So again, some of this is about how you've taken title and ownership. If it's in your individual name, you're good. If you've put it inside an LLC, not good.
No,
Right? So there's
it's still in my name and my it's in my name. It's not
so
in
yeah, so I can connect you with a lawyer I have in Fresno who I'm sure would answer your questions if you'd like.
okay. Because my thought is, do I keep this property and go ahead and spend the money to remodel it? And if I remodel it, I'm keeping it till the day I die.
Understood.
Or should I sell it, buy something newer, but everything else is going to be $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, and I'd probably walk away with 2, maybe.
Well, let's play with the math. Let's just have a fun little game here as a group. So if you're going to remodel a bath, kitchen, I don't know the size or whatnot, but are we talking 25 grand? What's your
I
gut?
would say 25 to 30. Yeah.
All right, so let's play with 30. So 30,000 bucks. And you think the extra income you would get on that? Let's remove the whole California limitation. You thought was $400? Did I hear that right?
Yes.
So what I would do is I would take 400 times 12. That equals 4,800, and then I would divide that by my 30,000 bucks, and that's a 16% return on my money. That's exactly the math I would do. Yep. And then I would ask myself, okay, great. Now I know the number I need to beat. Can I earn more than 16% on my money by taking the equity out of this asset and putting it somewhere else?
No.
And for most of us, the answer is no.
Right.
I don't know, Matt, Mike, Dion, would you guys do math any different in that case?
So can I ask you a couple questions about the remodel?
Yes.
Since that's what these hands do.
These hands don't.
Yeah, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So I did it for the first 5 to 7 years, I had to do all my own remodeling. But then after that, I couldn't have been more happy to get rid of it and give it to somebody else. But now I knew what they were doing. I knew how it needed to be done. I knew what looked done right. And so when you say have to redo a couple of bathrooms, are you talking bathtubs?
Complete guts. It
Well,
was
are they-
built in 1970, and it's the original, other than the toilet, it's the original bathroom.
Sure. So are they bathtubs or are they showers?
It's separate.
Separate. Okay.
The bathtub is in its own room.
Okay. All right.
So,
I mean, what I would look at is I would look at what the rehab costs of that are, because I think you'd be surprised. So as an example, we do kitchen cabinets. In our course, we allow people in our course to buy off of our contract, if you will. But where everybody else was getting quotes for $8,000 and $10,000 for a kitchen, we're doing them for 4 or 5. And so where you buy those materials and how you do your design is the massive difference. How I make more money than all the other landlords in my market, and how my margins are in the 20s on pretty much every deal I touch, is because I can rehab it for usually half to 60% the price, because I know the way to rehab it that saves you that 40 to 50%. So when you look at it that way, then that number that Mike had on 16%, now it's going to be a 24, 26% return on your money. You won't find anything that will come even close to that. And more importantly, you now have an asset that isn't going to need to go through a wholesaler or go through somebody when it goes to MLS on the market where they're going to, beat you up on the price. Now you have an asset that as it sits is done, and it's now turnkey. And that means you get retail plus in pretty much any market, and it flies off the market because people don't want to even do the smallest project. But if you're already doing the kitchen and the baths, those are the 2 most expensive things to do. But when you find a way to do them for 50 or 60% the price, now the numbers get nuts. And now your return on capital or your yield ends up being, 22, 26, 28%.
So right now I self-manage that property, but that's because we have a property manager that lives on site. He has a key. If there's an issue, he honestly manages it, and I just send him a check. So I kind of do have a property manager, except for I do all the rents and I do all the applications, and we both took turns showing it because I'd go down there a couple weekends. But when he stops doing that, I will probably need to hire a property manager.
My guess is, if you're even close to where Zoob is in Fresno, I'm sure that their company would look at it. I'm sure that you could, find somebody.
Yeah, when
else.
you say you're close to Fresno, are we talking 60 minutes, like you and Course Gold, or
No, but a half hour out.
Yeah,
that's
fine.
So
I have plenty of relationships if you want to go that direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a third option.
Yep.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Or
Dion.
option B, if we will. And this is a strategy that I use, and I actually just did it 3 times just before Christmas and 4 times last week. I've got units that could be updated, could be rehabbed, right? I could kick the tenant out, spend $20,000 to $40,000 in there, get better rents. Instead, I made the binder, and I went and I said, look, if you move out and I rehab this place, here's the rents I will get. I don't want to kick you out. What needs fixed that isn't functional, clean, and safe, right? Those are the 3 things we're going. So it's not updated. Some of those things are from 1984 when it was built, but the doors open and close, right? So I'm not touching them.
Everything's safe, functional, yes.
So I had 2 or 3 went up $150. The rest went at least $300 because they were that far off of rents, right? So I have this significant income increase without an out-of-pocket expense, except I've replaced 2 lights and a couple of other small things that the tenants didn't think were big enough to complain about, but we're having the conversation. So they point them out and they jump on it to get it done, right? Hire a handyman to go have it done. So if you could talk to the tenant and say, look, if you move out, I'm going to rehab this place. I'm going to get at least $400 more. I don't want to kick you out, but because of increased expenses, what do you think is fair? Just run the binder by me. If you email me the address, I'll make the PDF version of what the binder would look like and explain the conversation. And then you just go to them, and if they give you an increase of $150 or $200 without an out-of-pocket expense, what return on your money is that?
Infinite. I can do that math.
If an area is going, when I lived there, this was it was a fairly decent area. The area is going downhill. We're getting a lot more gangs and stuff now. Cop was killed there not so long ago. At
Are
what
you doing a
point-
rent study?
Huh?
Are you doing a rent study or a feelings study on the market?
Well,
Because I invest in Spanaway, Washington. It's like the drive-by shooting capital of Washington State, and rents have almost doubled in 3 years.
okay, so see, that's it. The rents are going up.
That's what we look at. We're
Okay.
not unless you're having super high tenant turnover because of it. Yeah, that can impact it. But what are rents doing? Not what the
Okay.
news is putting out.
All right, then keep it.
Yeah, you could. I mean, that's the thing is for me, the reason I update my units is because I know if I ever get in a pinch, if I ever get in trouble, if I ever have a problem, I can go retail right away, put it on the market, it sells. And that means that within 60 days, I can have a cash infusion of $250,000 or $500,000, depending on what asset I decide to sell. So Dion's plan absolutely works. You know, my option, Mike's option, all of them really come down to what's your SWAN plan? Sleep well at night.
Yeah.
Sleep well at night. What makes you sleep well at night? If you want to know going to bed tonight, if you change your mind tomorrow and you want to sell the asset, you're not going to take a hit because it's old and dated. And,
Right.
you know, clean, we always like to say clean and safe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, clean and safe means it's nothing else.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Sure.
Very cool. Thank you, Karen. All right, Serge, your hand was up next, at least according to my little tracking thing. Serge.
Yeah, hello. I have also 3, but maybe small questions.
Sure,
First of all, I feel like I have not enough knowledge, not enough money, not enough anything. And you told that I should talk to investors in some areas. And could you tell me what is the forum or chat or what is the place I can find some people and talk to them? Like, do we have some community like this?
Is what you're, so I would look at Facebook. Facebook has a million different chat groups. Some of them are statewide, some of them are county-wide, some of them are for a town, some of them are for like in Raleigh, like they have the meetup groups. You know, I would look at meetups. I would look at anything in the area where you're looking to invest. That is absolutely critical to any strategy, is being involved in those meetups and seeing what people are saying. You know, Dion always talks about, you know, the what was it, McKinley or something like that, the one road that you never, everything is 20% off because no one wants to get shot collecting rent. You find those things and you find those areas based on that local knowledge. And most seasoned landlords are happy to share. They're happy to share and talk and give secrets and things like that. But that's really the critical thing for you, is you got to get local, because real estate's hyper local. National, Mike's, you know, daily financial news is of critical importance, understanding what's going on in the world and the market. However, real estate's hyper local. There's some localities where pricing is going down, not many. A majority are flat or a majority are up still. So
yeah. Serge,
what
if I remember our conversations over the last 10 weeks, we were first looking locally. I think you were in San Jose. Then we were like, hey, maybe I got to go to Sacramento, something like that. So what I would do in environments like that is I would start showing up at local San Jose real estate meetups, right? There are several, Silicon Valley, there's San Jose REI, right? So you go to meetup.com there. I would join Facebook groups in the cities, right? So you really can't go to every Sacramento meetup, but you can join the Facebook groups, as Matt is saying. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't at least poke at forums on Bigger Pockets. I think a lot of us start there. I haven't been there in a while, but the forums are a great place. You can kind of introduce yourself, use keywords so you can get alerts on different markets you're in. You got to start by listening, obviously, because you don't have any experience there yet. But to Matt's point, when you kind of get the conversation and see what's going on, you start to absorb, you know, what is important and what is not important. Mike, do you have any other thoughts? I mean, when you went to Gary, Indiana, right, the Google searches were highly negative. But, you know, you went there because you found a mentor. You found another successful investor who was willing to share and bring you along. we'd be remiss, Serge, if we didn't talk about the importance of finding others that are investing there. But Mike, why Gary? How'd you dig in?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, and this is kind of highlighted by the story I was telling earlier with Senya. The same thing happened with me. I was looking at my local market; it was very expensive. Couldn't make sense of any of the numbers here, and so I started looking at Midwest markets. I drew circles from my local Seattle area, and nothing made sense all the way out of the state. It's very expensive here in Washington, and so I was like, well, I'll consider the Midwest. I grew up in North Dakota. I'll look around there. And then I told myself, well, look, if I'm willing to go as far as North Dakota, 2,000 miles away, I may as well find one of the best markets. And so Mike had connected me with, Zuber had connected me with someone else who invested at a distance. And they were telling me and encouraging me to invest in Gary, which is, Zuber said, a quick Google search. And you're like, well, absolutely not. I'm not going to invest in this depopulating, 3 times the national crime rate, 3 times the national poverty rate, 13,000 abandoned buildings in the city. Absolutely not. Never going to happen. What a terrible place to invest. That's when I started becoming more aware of the fact that in every market in the country, in every single market, red state, blue state, class A, class D, in every market, there's someone who's doing it right and there's someone who's doing it wrong. You just got to find the people who are doing it right and copy them. So that's what I did. I found somebody who was investing in a high cash flow on paper market like Gary, Indiana, and I started copying some of their systems and strategies. And that networking that I did with that individual was all done virtually. So I encourage people now to really focus on virtual networking. Dion and I like to joke about this all the time because we both played a lot of video games, and Dion still does. But when you played video games as a kid, in 2004, 2005, when I was playing World of Warcraft as a 14-year-old kid, and I would get made fun of because I would go home and chat to the people online more than I would talk to my real friends, unless they were also playing online. I didn't realize I was actually building a skill that we're all learning right here now, because with the exception of Dion and Matt and myself and Zuber, I haven't met any of you. I assume none of you have met each other. I assume none of you have met anybody on this call. And yet, after spending 10 weeks going through a boot camp, going through a course, watching videos, you probably feel somewhat like you've developed a friendship with some of us, at least certainly probably Mike Zuber. I know that I have, even though I've met him one time in person. You can absolutely develop close personal relationships with people that you meet online that you never have seen in person. Senya and I talk probably every day. She constantly apologizes for bothering me, and I tell her she's not a bother. But it's just a mindset shift, a mindset shift. There we go. A mindset shift. When you start networking virtually, you can build a very successful team of people by reaching out. And what I've been encouraging people to do now, and so many people are very resistant to it. In the 2000s, early 2000s, when you wanted to contact somebody, we went away from giving out phone numbers. We started giving out email addresses. Well, email addresses now are just a place that collect junk mail, spam, and bills. The way that people verify and talk to each other in 2024 on forward is through Instagram. And I know probably most of you sit there and say, well, I don't really want to post about myself on Instagram. I don't really want to put business things on Instagram. Make a different Instagram if you want it separate from your personal one. Have two. But your Instagram is your living, breathing resume of who you are. Everybody who wants to see, are you a legitimate person? Are you doing business in a certain area? Can I do a background check on you? Can I verify that the person I'm talking to is real and not a robot or a scammer? The first thing they do nowadays, if they're under the age of 50, is they immediately go to your Instagram profile. That's the way people get in contact with you. They send you a direct message. So what I keep telling people to do is, if you want to network with more people in your market, you need to make an Instagram that's focused on your market. I jokingly refer to myself as the king of Gary, Indiana, all the time, the king of Gary. And the reason that is because 3 or 4 years ago, I started making videos on YouTube and on Instagram about investing in Gary. And there's nobody else who makes any videos about that area. So while I can't be the most famous real estate video making guy on YouTube, because I'm competing with Grant Cardone and Graham Stephan and Chris Crone, and of course the greatest of them all, Michael Zuber, I can't possibly hope to overcome these guys. But what I can do is be the only guy who owns every single search term for Gary, Indiana, Hammond, Indiana, Lake County, Indiana. Nobody else makes any videos. So I get access to networking opportunities and deals and famous celebrities who are interested in investing in the area for whatever reason. They were on Bigger Pockets and saw Indiana, and they put it into YouTube, and guess whose videos pop up? Ya boy. So learn to network virtually. If you want to get into these groups, you need to learn to network virtually, put yourself out there a little bit, talk about what you're doing, and you will be amazed at the fact that everything in life comes down to who you know. So you need to know as many people as you can.
Well, let's also go to kind of part B of Serge's question, which I don't think either of us has answered just yet. He highlighted that he feels like he doesn't have enough money, right? Doesn't have enough capital. I think we should
Yeah,
poke at
I
that a
think
little bit.
I would like to maybe join Capitals and do something who have already knowledge, already some ideas, and learn together. Yeah, it's kind of second part of the same question.
Yeah, we'll go back to that one. Absolutely. I think that's one that I think a lot of people at some point have that. Even myself in my 20-year journey, there were several times where I didn't have capital. So we should talk about that. Matt, go ahead, Serge. You have a point?
Yeah, I just think maybe okay.
No, this is for you. So if you have a twist, let me know.
Yeah, I just think I don't want to spend too much time to maybe it's
Oh, it's fine. That's what everybody's
Yeah.
here for. So not a
Yeah, that's what
problem.
we're here for. So yeah,
is-
let's go ahead, Matt. You want to go?
Getting money is definitely a Zuber and Millennial Mike skill. I'm lazy when it comes to Dion. I don't get other people's money. I don't want other people's money. I don't want the headache. I don't want to listen to the noise. I'm going to do it my way. I'm selfish in the sandbox. If you try and take my shovel, I'm going to throw sand on you. So
You're gonna take
yeah,
it back. Yeah.
So
right.
exactly. So Mike and Mike are the two money guys, I think.
Yeah. So I'll go first. So I've raised money a couple of different times. One time was just straight up 12% interest. The next time might be more interesting for this conversation because I gave up equity. The key to all of this really goes back to what Millennial Mike has done in Gary. I did this back in 2010 with a website called wealthbuildingpro.com. It doesn't exist anymore. I think if you search it, you can find somebody who cached it or something. But what I did is I wrote about Fresno, California in 2010 about all the crazy cheap houses. And what happened after we did that just 4 or 5 times is my friends and family and, people that would become friends reached out to me and said, "Hey, I like what you're doing. I got all this money sitting in the account. Can we do something together?" So the key to all of this, Serge, is you have to do the work. Finding a deal. I won't say finding a deal. Proving that you can find multiple deals and share that in the community in that market will attract money. Everything I do is do the work. You have to learn how to find a deal, spot a deal, because that's the hardest thing to do. If you can spot multiple deals over the course of 6 to 9 months, your ability to raise capital would be almost unlimited. It is documenting that. The problem I see out there with a lot of folks is, hey, I want to get started. I've got, 50 grand at scratch set aside. I want to be a part of something else. It's not really how it works. You really do risk a lot. I mean, there'll be a lot of LPs, limited partners, who threw 50 grand into some high price name in a syndication, and they're going to lose their butt. I have a very strong feeling the bigger the name, the lower the return. So for me, kind of like Matt was saying, is it's my sandbox. I do what I can, but unlike Matt, who doesn't like to share, I'm willing to, give you my shovel if I don't have any cash, and we'll do something together. But it all starts with finding the deal for me. Mike, I don't know if you want to add something on that.
So I'm going to say something that maybe Serge isn't going to like to hear. And Serge, this is kind of the tough reality of when it comes to raising money with other people. And that's the fact that until you've done all of the virtual networking that I talked about earlier and really built those relationships, and until you've also shown a track record of success by doing a couple of deals that you can then show to people, you haven't necessarily earned the right to raise money from private investors. I mean, you're going to go to these people and say, "Hey, can I borrow some money to invest in a deal?" And they're going to trust you with their money and that you're going to work hard for them. But do you have a track record of success, and do they know you well enough to go down that route? Now, I'm not saying that you can't raise money from private people, even if you've never done a deal before. But typically what I would say, if you're a brand new want-to-be investor and you've never done a deal, I would be extremely worried that I would screw something up and lose somebody else's money, and that will destroy my reputation, or get you embroiled in some sort of lawsuit. You don't want either one of those things. Now, you could go out there and find a good deal and wholesale it. Absolutely. People have brought me deals who have never invested in real estate before. If you're out looking for because I assume the only way you're going to need to raise money is if you're out there finding a deal. So if you find a good deal and then go to an investor like Zuber, like the Lumberjack, like Dion, like myself, you come to me with a killer deal and say, can I get a $5,000, $10,000 wholesaling finder's fee for finding this deal? The answer is yes. I'll pay for that every time if it's the right deal. You do 1, 2, or 3 of those, and now you've got, maybe 20, 30 grand sitting there, and you can do a couple of deals. I would be extremely cautious of listening to some of the advice that's given by people like Bigger Pockets when they say it's very easy to use other people's money when you don't have experience yet. You're asking for problems. Now, the other way that you can earn money is the old school way, which is what I did, which is, I believe, what Dion did. And that's, I worked a lot. I worked 80 hours a week for 6 months. I picked up every overtime shift. I had a second job. I busted my butt for 6 months to save $25,000. So I had enough of a down payment for the first house hack that I bought, which was this one. After I bought this house hack, my monthly rent payment went away. And now I was able to save those $2,000 I was paying in rent for future down payments. And people don't like to hear, work extremely hard for 6 to 12 months and save every penny, stay up late, punish your body, be tired. Well, my wife's going to be mad. My kids won't see me. Dude, I get it. I get it. Single father, full custody of my son. I understand. It's not fun, but that is one option that you can do. The other option, like I said, that really works is probably wholesaling. And the last possible option that you may consider when it comes to raising private money, maybe you partner with a family member, a brother, mom or dad. But again, if you don't know what you're doing, you're exposing them to a lot of risk because you're an amateur at this point. And some people make it work, but a lot of people don't. And I don't want to see your relationships destroyed because you wanted to jump in. There's nothing wrong with working 6 to 12 months and saving a bunch of money. Get a second job. I worked 3 jobs for like 12 years of my life. And still to this day, I work 60, 70 hours a week between SWAT and if I put YouTube in there, I'm at like 100 hours a week.
Very cool. Serge, I think you had mentioned you have 2 additional small questions.
Yeah. So right now I'm on W2. I have 401k, and my question: do you know any? Can you recommend any company or somebody who can explain me how I can use that money for down payment, for example, for investment?
Well, I can tell you what I did with my 401k. This is not financial advice. It's only what I did. My employer allowed me to borrow up to 50% or 50 grand, whatever was less of my 401k balance, and pay myself back. So it was like I took a loan against my 401k. I paid interest on that loan, interest to myself. It came right out of my paycheck every 2 weeks. I had a W-2 as well. My employer allowed me to pick the payment period. Is it 12 months? Is it 24? Is it 36 months? Like, how fast do I pay it back? And I borrowed against my 401k 12 or 15 times over 20 years. Your employer can allow that. If you're in the tech space, which I think you are, Serge, I'm going to guess most of our tech employers allow you just directly. I did it right on my computer, my work computer. Went to I think it was Fidelity. Went to my Fidelity account. There's a button that says hardship loan, which I didn't qualify for, and then whatever the other button was, loan. And it was frankly easy to do, but you have to check with your employer. So that's that question.
Okay, good. And last question: if some crazy tenant, you missed some background check or something, or they bring their relative, I don't know, really bothering all neighborhood, and they do some stupid stuff, but it's California, for example. I don't know. And I just have this issue right now. My neighbors rent out to some, maybe it's program 8, I don't know. Really bad, I don't know, people. How to get rid of them, or what is the mechanism to start evict them?
Evictions?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can only talk about my experience. Everybody's lease has, you know, I don't know, I'll call it code of conduct. That's probably the wrong word, but basically with the tenant's responsibilities, noise, trash, you know, parking, you know, all of those things. You in California, you certainly have to create a file, right, of notifications and all of that. If they are Section 8, you can call Section 8 to come do an inspection of what's going on. But the tenant is held responsible for a set of criteria. And if they are failing to meet those and you document those can be reasons for evictions. Yeah, in my experience. Matt, you do a lot of this stuff. What do you see?
I do a lot of this. Usually it's just about having a good lease. And so that comes again from the networking piece. You know, I've never, ever, ever paid for a lease. I get whatever attorney I'm really impressed with in REI. I always talk to them. I say, yeah, I'd like to set up an hour-long call, have a conversation with them. I've already seen them in court for free. I get the hour-long call for free. And then if after that hour-long call, I'm feeling pretty good, I say, what I'd like to do is I'd like to put you on retainer to handle any of my landlord-tenant dispute stuff. I'm sure you probably have some sort of a lease template that you use. The answer has always been yes. I get that for free because then I say, I know that you can defend your lease better than anybody else can. And that means that they have my best interests. We're completely aligned. I'm using a document that they created as an attorney, so they know that there's very few loopholes, if any at all. They're used to defending that lease, but there's always language in there that allows for the opportunity to be able to, you know, basically, what's that? Do like a warning, like an official warning. And so we have that in our leases, where if they're doing something, we can actually cite section this, dot this, and we find that you are in violation of this. This is your first occurrence. And in our state, we can actually put, if there's a second occurrence, these are this is terms for eviction. So it nips things in the bud pretty quickly, but that means I just got a free lease. I have consultation about that lease, and I don't have to spend a bunch of time with an attorney getting to know some lease I bought somewhere else.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's lease, rules of operation, and tenants, even in California, can be held to a certain standard. So it's just a process, Serge. Was that your third and final question? All right. Thank you, Serge. We are going to Leanne's iPhone question.
Hi.
Hi.
Good morning. Yeah, I have several questions.
Okay.
First, I think the easiest one. So I have a tenant who lived there for a while. So they mentioned the stove. It had one of the knob is stuck. I'm thinking about I don't know what to do. Like my husband doesn't know what to do. So I'm thinking like, should I just leave it like that for them to use? But on the other side, I want to spend like another $1,000 to buy a new one. What Matt's recommendation?
If it's less than 8 years old, you know, if it's newer than 8 years old, I would call a repair person and I would just ask them, what is your policy for repair? You know, if you aren't able to fix it, do I still get billed? If you fix it, am I billed? Something like that could be, you know, it could be an easy fix if you're mechanically inclined. If you're not mechanically inclined, I get it, having to hire somebody to do it. But if it's less than 8 years old, I'd probably hire somebody on a contingency basis to go look at it and say, this is what it's going to cost to fix it. If it's anything older than 8 years old, I would just replace it.
Yeah, it's kind of my thinking as well. You got to be careful with stoves. That would definitely be health and safety. You don't want that getting stuck on. Definitely needs to be addressed. It's probably the clip behind the knob. It's probably where it is. That either snapped or broke. So, but if it's a really old stove, it's time to go. But you know,
I think it's only 4 years old.
Service call.
Yeah, service call 100%.
Yeah, it's probably a pretty quick fix.
Another question is that this tenant stayed there for about 4 years now, and the rent is, I did Dion by the method already, but the rent's still like below the market about
when did you do Dion's? How long ago?
Couple years ago.
Well, I think you already know the answer. Dion, the answer is do it again, right?
Yeah, I'm redoing it all again 2 years. I did it all at the end of 2021. I'm doing it all again right now. Normally rents go up so slow it doesn't matter. but, and this is weird, Washington has rent control on the ballot this year.
Yep.
So I'm doing the binder again all across the board in case it goes through. So I think if it's been a couple of years, you'll have,
Again.
you know, I didn't get like $500 increases, but a $200 or $300 increase can happen. And that gets you closer without having to spend a bunch of money.
So as I talk to the tenant, it seemed like it's kind of, I don't know, it's just the feeling that they may not willing to increase the rents again. I will try, but I may not get anything more than the 4% increase each year. But I will try that method again.
Is it a single family home?
Yes.
Yeah. Again, I think the binder strategy is so powerful because and also for you, you're going to go out and look at what else is available, right? If they can go find a similar unit for less money, you won't raise the rent. But their options are, you know, $700, $800, $900 more. You know, for Dion, they're gonna ask you for $200 or $300, and it's a win-win.
This is where Dion's strategy works really well, is in January and February.
Yeah.
You know, in my market, you can't really rent anything in this time. The only tenants you're getting are ones that were evicted because no one wants to move when it's 10 degrees and there's 2 feet of snow on the ground.
Yeah, no.
But in your market, January is a viable option. It's just not spring. It's not, you know, summer or going into the fall. So Dion's strategy of doing it in January, February, you likely have a much more limited pool, which means you'll have fewer listings, which means they have fewer options, which means that they're likely higher priced. That it's going to give you opportunity to have more pricing leverage there.
One side of me thinking when I'm do business, I need to consider business, right? I need to increase rent to catch up with the market. But then on the other side, I feel for them because the work they do, the way their lifestyle, it's make them, it's hard for them to afford. It's hard for me to increase the rent for them because I still have good cash flow for this property.
Those are not considerations. I think the binder strategy is powerful because it's win-win, right? If you were a greedy slumlord, you would hit them with a $500 increase and take whatever is allowed. That's not what the binder strategy is. The binder strategy is, hey, let's work together. So I get a little bit and you get a little bit. The binder strategy is powerful because it gives the tenant the information that allows them to go see what else is possible. So you're doing them a favor, right? You could just hit them with 500, which some landlords would. It's just time, you know, it's time to do it again. It's been 2 years. Rents are up a bunch where you are. Go have the conversation. You know what? And at the end of the day, if the tenant comes back and says, you know what, I really can't do anything more than $50, that's your call. You know, you have a choice. But until you do the work.
What did you do in that case? Because
so I just had that case. I have a tenant in a 3-bedroom. They're paying $1,710. Rents are $2,500. Right. So it's a significant difference. And I showed them the thing and they basically said, based on our budget, we really can't afford more. And I was like, okay, I will help you find a place. You have I'll give them 3 months to find a place and get out. So sometimes, and I put it in the chat, the best outcome for the binder strategy is the tenant leaves.
Absolutely.
Like the lazy person in me was like, yeah, I would rather not have to go do a rehab. But you know, and that's when there's like a $300 or $500 difference and come up a little, but this is almost $1,000 off. And if the tenant, you know, if the tenant wouldn't do probably $400 or $500, I wouldn't renew. And when they said, oh, we can't do much, I said, okay, cool. You can't afford a place of this size. It's a couple in a 3-bedroom. They can go find a 2-bedroom and it'll be more in their affordable range. And best outcome for both sides because they can't afford what the real rents are. And I can't afford to have rents that far below.
Yeah, especially with rent control coming. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
The last one is related to money to acquire a next property. So if I use my family money, I'm thinking about using their money to pay them interest. Sure. Should I just transfer their money to my account first, or should I just leave it in their account and until I have the property? Which mean when I work with the lender to get pre-approval, I have to get their statement, right?
Well, so I've done this. I don't know if the other three have done it. So I've taken private money from families. I've never taken the money in advance. I have their money wired. Their money goes into escrow once the title, once we have a pending contract. But that said, I was able to qualify for the loan because I had the assets first. So the real question becomes, could you qualify a loan for the loan standalone? Meaning you have the down payment somewhere or the equity somewhere. That way, if a bank's going to approve it, you'll be approved standalone, right? You don't need to show seasoned money. And if
Yeah,
that's the
so
case,
that's tough for me right now. So right now I cannot qualify for conventional because
Mhm.
I have 4 properties already, and I just spent like about 80,000 on an ADU that I collect rent right now, and also spend another like almost 100,000 on another property because I bought it when it
okay.
when it need a lot of work. So I just
So there-
spent a lot of money already. So I ran
Understood.
out of money.
So no, so let's just play this out. This is exactly the game of I don't know, Tetris that I played for 20 years. So a couple of things. First off, having 4 loans today is not a problem. So just because you have 4 conventional doesn't mean you can't get a 5th. So let's remove that. That was a problem 5 years ago. It's not a problem anymore. You can get a 5th conventional loan. So let's take that off. You can go up to 10 now pretty easily. So take that off. What I would be doing in your situation, just creating an ADU and just putting 100 grand in other properties, I would go get an equity line on 1 or 2 of those. That then becomes your source of capital that you could use. Now, you and I won't use it because we're going to have private capital come in at point of closing, but it will show you have access to the down payment. So that's the first thing that I would do is I would go get an equity line on these new assets that have new value. I wouldn't use them because the equity line is probably going to be like 12% or something crazy. But that would be the game of Tetris I would play. I would take the assets I have. I would go ladder up, get an equity line for 50 grand or 75 grand, whatever it is. I would then use that to go shopping. And then I would, when I close, the money would be wired in from someone else. So that's exactly the game I would play.
Yeah, because my primary home, I have a lot of equity in it. So do you recommend get
Yeah. Again,
equity line for the primary or the rental?
So a primary is going to give you the best rates. But again, in this game of Tetris, I'm actually not planning to use it. I just want it available so I look strong as a borrower. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in that case, I would not put one on my home. I would put it on the rental. Now, if for whatever reason you don't have the equity, you can't get approved, then of course the primary is the backup. But in this game of Tetris, I would not ladder up my personal home, right? I was deathly afraid of losing my family home because as a kid, we packed up and we're ready to leave. I mean, I'll never put my family through that. So if I have a choice, I'll ladder up the rentals. If I lost a rental, I wouldn't care. But if I put my family at risk, I would feel horrible. So that's my personal opinion on that.
But then, yeah. But then that opened another option for me to use equity of the primary, of the rental, right? So if I'm thinking ahead, like if I get an equity of the rental and then I end up using that equity, it's gonna be several 100,000, not 50,000 because the market that I'm in. But then I may, if I don't want to use my family money, I mean, if I use my family money and buy one property, and then I may thinking about like using the equity of the rental buy another property, then how long do you how do you make judgment when you pay off that equity line? Because it's high interest, right? But I don't think I can save to pay it off within a year or 2.
That's the key, right? I use my equity lines a lot. I always had a rule that once I used it, I couldn't buy anything else until I paid it off because the interest rates were always high. So that becomes my focus. But let's not forget, right? Remember my book, One Rental at a Time. I made the mistake the first time doing a cash out refi. The equity line's the same story. if you borrow too much, you can turn an asset into negative cash flow, aka alligator. When I gave you this game of Tetris I played in my mind, it wasn't to open up a can of worms to give you more debt. It was to open up the can of worms to facilitate borrowing private money. Right? My thinking is, and again, I could be wrong, your family money probably costs less than the equity line, right? You could probably borrow family money at 8% interest. An equity line is going to be 12. And oh, by the way, an equity line has interest rate risk and duration risk and can be closed and all these other things. Family money, you could set the note up. It says, Mom and Dad, I'm going to pay you at 8% interest for the next 10 years. So family money usually has more, is cheaper and more flexibility.
And
yeah.
then when you borrow money like that, you pay 5 to 10%. Then you have to make your deal yield is better than that, right?
I would, yeah, absolutely, of course.
You have to.
Yes,
which is really tough in my market.
Well, the real estate's hard. I'm sorry. But at least you have options. And again, I would, again, setting up those options, having those conversations, because you never know when the deal comes. You never know. I've had plenty of conversations, access in, 3, 4, 5 months, that deal, just has to close and I'm the only option. You just never know. Don't have self-limiting beliefs. I know it's hard. It's been hard for 20 years. It'll be hard for the next 20 years. It's the game when we only do great deals. Anybody could do a bad deal.
It's true.
Yeah, so like I really like to buy apartment like 2 to 4. Like not me, but my husband and really like it. But then like as I cannot qualify, it's hard for me to acquire a single family home. Then apartment, the criteria, I don't know much. I haven't go into that.
Yeah, I would. You know what I would do in this case is I would probably use my network, right? I'd probably go to Matt the Mortgage Guy or Convoy Home Loans, and just have them run a sustainability on a fourplex. So go do some work, find a fourplex in your area, call those guys up, say, hey, I'm part of Zuber's thing. They'll take care of you, and just have them run the numbers for you. Because buying a single family home is basically about you and your income and your credit. When you buy a fourplex, the building is supposed to produce income. So the qualification is a different ballgame. It sounds like you haven't been through that yet. So do some work, find a deal, bring it to both. I bring it to both of them and just have them walk you through the possibilities.
Okay, that's great. Because like I think like I cannot buy multifamily because I cannot qualify for the single family home.
No, it's a different game. So do the work, get some numbers, price, rates, or rents, sorry, and call both those guys and they'll take care of you.
Awesome.
All
That's
right.
good. Thank you so much.
Of course. Gabriel, you're up next.
What's going on, guys?
Hey.
First of all, thank you guys so much for your sacrifice and for just helping everybody out in the community and everything else. So appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for your time. My question, I have a couple questions, but my first one is a little bit emotional. It's a little bit maybe more geared towards Mike. I have 3 boys. I have an 18-year-old, I have a 10-year-old, and an 8-year-old. And so the 18-year-old is with his mom in Miami, Florida. So I've always been, so I've only seen him, I've seen him every single month, once a month, for his 16, 17 years. And so I've tried to instill in him as much as I possibly could, as far as, investment. I'm an entrepreneur. I build, I do remodel, stuff like that. Mike knows a little bit about my story. And I've actually forwarded a couple of videos of Mike's videos, of Millennial Mike's videos to my son, that I really, really liked, and so I'm trying to get him into that whole thing. And I kind of got him a little bit. He's in college, he's studying, and he's a computer geek. And so he's studying to do that, but he doesn't have that entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, so much. He likes working for the man, and I'm trying to get him out of that. But so I guess my question is, and it'd be for the 4 of you, obviously. I think all of you guys have children as well. But how would you approach that? He sounds interested in doing some of this stuff, and learning some of this stuff. And he's got his mom's side of the family that does a little bit of, I believe, a little bit of rentals and stuff like that. But how do you connect with him and instill in him the importance of being able to own something and use that and to better your life, better your your future, obviously, in a much more smaller scale. I'm 43, about to be 44, and I feel like the time crunch because my goal is 10 years. My goal is hopefully my goal was between 50 and 55, to retire. But yeah, that goes to question number 2. But anyways, back to my son's, like, how would you approach that? He's willing to do a deal with me, and I'm a little scared because obviously I've taken your course, and I don't want to jump to a different market. I don't know Miami market as far as real estate is concerned. And so I'm trying to gear him back to Texas. And so he's like, no, I like Florida, blah, 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 so it's like, how would you try to light that fire to hopefully help them out and hopefully come alongside that, obviously build the relationship and continue with that. That's my most important thing anyway, but also instill a great mindset of following the rules, doing the work, looking at stuff. I've talked to him kind of like an investor, even though I'm learning myself, like, hey, look, if you find these deals or if you look for this stuff, or like, let's talk to him about the buy box. I've done some of the stuff that I've learned, but obviously I don't know a lot. So I wanted to see if I can kind of guide him towards, Millennial Mike or Matt or Dion and obviously Zuber, and just so that way he can grow in that knowledge that I don't have yet either.
Mike, this is teed it up for you. Why don't you kind of talk about that as a single father? What do you hope to do with your son?
Sure. So it's a very, very difficult question, to be honest, because people have their own personalities. Children have different personalities than their parents do. Siblings do. You might have siblings of yours that grew up in a very similar environment to you, and you've got a deadbeat brother who's a lazy bum, and you've got a high-performing, high-octane, hard-working brother. Like, how did these two people who grew up in virtually the same situation come out so differently? The best thing that I can say when it comes to, at least with financial things and with real estate investing, if you read the book The Millionaire Next Door, which I have sitting right here, they go into a bunch of different studies about the worst things you can do as a parent that almost guarantee financial failure in your children, and that's giving them money. They call it economic outpatient care in the book. The more money you give them in their youth, the more money you'll have to give them as an adult. There's a reason why by the 3rd generation, almost all wealth that was created by the 1st generation is squandered. It's because the skills and traits that you had that taught you how to make money, become a good steward over money and keep that money process flowing, the skills that you developed were not necessarily passed on to the next generation. They just became the benefactor of it. And then by the 3rd generation, they have absolutely no skills. They squander the wealth. And that's why there's this revolving door at the 1% level, unless you're a Rothschild. And so then the question becomes, well, how do you do something? And from what I've gathered, the best thing that I could think of, and it is kind of working with my son, who, it makes me feel a little bit guilty, but also makes me feel proud because, Dad, I've got $50, Dad. I bet you don't have $50, because he's so proud when he makes his little $1 or $2, or he does an Easter egg hunt and he finds the egg with $5 in it. The kid never spends money. He has 4 wallets because people keep giving him wallets, and he splits his money in his 4 wallets. And it might be because he just doesn't know how to spend it yet. He's 7 years old, but he just really thinks money is cool. For me, when I think about how do you motivate somebody to do anything, I approach that from the aspect of law enforcement being on a SWAT team, because we specifically seek out extremely highly motivated people. That's what it takes to be on an elite team, to willing to be shot at, to have the physical fitness standards you need, to be good with the firearm, all the different requirements that are required. You have to have some internal motivation to get you there in the first place. And how you develop that beginning part is very difficult. That's going to be different for every person. But when you get them at least interested, okay, well, then now how do we develop somebody? How do you develop leadership? How do we build skills? And it has to be the crawl, walk, run phase. So what you need to do is you need to, your son. Okay, what are his skill sets? What is his interest level? Can you give him a task that he'll actually be receptive to, that's within his skill range, but will push him out of his comfort zone slightly? Can you give him something that's 20% more difficult than what he can handle, not so overwhelming that he's going to fail at it? Like on day one as a SWAT guy, I need you to plan an entire operation incorporating 40 different operators to go and serve a felony search warrant. That's way too complex for day one SWAT guy. But can I tell this guy, hey, your job today is to prep the armored vehicle and gear. Here's a checklist of things that need to be done. Here's your checklist. Go make it happen. When you have questions, reach out to me or somebody else more senior on the team. You're pushing them slightly out of their skill zone. And by year 5, doing that armored vehicle prep is so simple to them because you've just slowly built one skill after the next with everything related. So if he's interested, or you want to get him interested in real estate investing, and you're doing this yourself, for me, I would be trying to incorporate his help and his opinion and asking him to take a task that works well for him. Maybe it's just making a phone call. Maybe it's going through an email and just, letting you know what the main points from the email were so that you guys can have a discussion about it. But if you need to generate general interest, if you're still at the level of how do I even generate interest, the best thing that I can think of, stop giving the kid any money and make him work at McDonald's to pay for his own stuff, because he will do that for 6 months and hate his life so much he's going to be looking for a way out of that minimum wage dead end job. So, but if you limp them through college and you pay for their lifestyle and you give them the student loans, you teach them all that, well, then they never have to hit rock bottom to then look for a ladder to crawl out of rock bottom. Those are my opinions.
Yeah. So Gabriel, when I heard your story, I think,
Yes, sir.
I think you've got a door to walk through. You need to decide if you want to walk through it, right? You have some fatherly hug that you want to fill. You want to help. It sounds like he's like, Dad, I want to do it in Miami. You're like, no, let's do it in Texas. Well, what I would do is, okay, son, you want to do this in Miami? I need you to do 3 things. And then to Mike's point, let's see how he does those 3 things. Because I think what you're telling me is it's not necessarily about the return. It's about showing what's possible. It's about better preparing him for when he's 25 and 35 and 45. So the door's open. You need to be the dad and step up and go, okay, son, we're going to do Miami together, but I'm going to hold you responsible, right? It's your backyard, not mine. I need you to poke around. We need to talk about a buy box. You need to go see some homes. You need to go to a real estate meetup, right? I'm going to be the money so we can take that off the table, but you got to do some work, right? So I would, and then you're going to find out, is he just talking smack because, he thinks it's easy, or is he really game to do the work and do his half? So I think the door's open. Let's see if you can walk through it. That's my first thought. And then the second thing, you opened up with entrepreneur. He wants to work for the man. This is a big deal to me. You can absolutely retire faster, in my opinion, as a W-2 employee. If you make some other choices, live below your means, bust your ass, do those things. Be an entrepreneur. If you do it right, you could be a lot richer as an entrepreneur. No question, right? The upside of being an entrepreneur is much, much higher. But if we were going to compare the W-2 employees versus the entrepreneurs, my guess is if they followed what certainly what I talk about, as a W-2 employee, certainly as a computer scientist or an engineer, right? Because he's a nerd or geeking out, he can make a gob of money. I work with engineers that make $500,000 a year. And if you can live on 100, you can save a lot of money, bank money, buy some stuff in Miami, and be done by the time you're 30. So I wouldn't necessarily try to pull your son into being an entrepreneur if that's not where he's at, in my opinion. But I would definitely give him the live below your means, save 30%. Let's do all the work of finding a unit. That's some more feedback. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. He tells me all the time. He's like, Dad, you can start the business. I'll work for you. I'll make the 300,000 and you can make the million. I mean, right. Yeah. No risk to the W-2. It's more of a, I guess the principal aspect of it. And I agree with you 100%. I mean, yeah, and I'm an entrepreneur, but at the same time, it's like I envy the W-2 because it's like I have no time.
Yeah.
I got it's like, I mean, I can pay a property cash, but I have I don't even have time to to
Yeah.
manage it or whatever, just a lot of there's a lot of pros and cons in both. So I definitely absolutely agree with it. So
What I would do is I would harness his interest, and that's Miami. I would harness his skill set, which is numbers. If he's a geek or an engineer, he loves numbers.
Yep.
So harness what you can from him, because interested is interesting. And seeing that his dad is interested in what he's doing is going to be a big motivator for him. But do it in his market. And here's the cool thing. When you finish with Miami, you're going to find that the numbers are going to suck. They're not going to work. And then you say, all right, cool. Now let's do that.
Yep.
Now, exactly. Now let's do that in Texas, and let's just see how they compare. Because at the end of the day, we're in this for money, right? We want to do this for money. Or even if he says, yeah, Miami doesn't work. Okay, cool. Let's do Tampa then. Guess what? Numbers don't really work there either for single family homes, because, Florida is a no income tax state. And so they have higher property taxes. And then when you add insurance in there, it's probably not going to work. So your best bet is to harness his interest and harness his skill set, and aim it in a direction that you get a return. And that is time spent with him, giving him the idea of the process, having him leverage his skills, and then you've given him a tool set that he can use for the rest of his life to figure things out.
Here's 3 really quick points. First, you're 43. You're expecting an 18-year-old to look at the world or money in any way the way you are, right? When you were 18, imagine a 43-year-old trying to tell you what you were going to do with money. You have 25 years of working going, this sucks, I want to retire in 10 years. He has 18. I hope I can work for 25 years. That's a totally different way of looking at the world. Second thing is, the most important thing you can do for your kid is to make sure you don't become a financial burden when you're too old to work. So you're on the right track with you reaching financial freedom. And third, I think the best way to get interest from your kids into this is to build a life that's the example that they might want to pursue. Whether it's entrepreneur and W-2, when you start reaching financial freedom and having assets that produce money, that's what's going to bring in the interest. And to the point where right now, if it's finances you want them focused on, I don't know, and this is no dig on the 4 of us, I don't know that Mike, Matt, or me are the person to send him to. I would look at Caleb Hammer.
Yeah, Caleb,
the channel that just tears into somebody's finances and says, you created this bad debt. That sucks. You're stupid. And he's like really rough about it.
He is rough.
It's the right age group for that. And then once you understand money is a thing to focus, then you can shift it to financing down the road.
Yeah. All right, guys, we do only have 36 minutes left. We're going to try to get to everybody through Richard. Richard is the last hand up I see. So we're going to try to answer every question with one of us. If we are really passionate, obviously we can chime in, but we will try to get through this. Gabriel, was that your final question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Very cool. Catherine,
thank you guys. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, man. And have fun with it. Enjoy the process. It's awesome. Catherine, you're up.
Good morning, everybody. I have 3 questions. 2 of them are very quick. The first one is for Zuber, Matt, Dion, and Mike. I know that Zuber has property management, but I think the rest of you 3 y'all self-manage, if I'm correct. And for the self-managers, who shows your property?
I hire an agent at $30 an hour.
Okay.
And I do it myself if I'm in the country. If not, I use Hemlane's 3rd tier to have them have a leasing agent go out.
Okay.
And Mike, you show the only one you self-manage is next door. So I'm guessing you show that.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Good information. The second kind of quick question, hopefully, is Zuber just made a comment a little earlier about rent control is coming. I've kind of been attuned to that myself, wondering if we're all going to eventually get there. What are your thoughts on that, Zuber?
So I think rent control may be pitched at the federal level. It will ultimately fail at the Supreme Court. It is a state issue. So there will certainly be more states adopting it. Would not shock me if Washington passes, just knowing which way that state leans. It would not be a concern in most red states long term. It would not shock me if they tried to do something national. Again, it would fail at the Supreme Court. So not a big concern nationally, in my opinion.
Red governors, their states don't have rent control, and Minneapolis just did it. 3.5% is how much you can raise it. It doesn't matter what inflation is. 3.5% your cap. And so they've had a number of developers leave the state and leave
Exactly.
Minneapolis. And so now it's becoming this waste bowl. I've seen people that have seen the changes and what's available in that market in the last 12 months to 18 months since they've enacted it. And so they are going to enjoy their fate. It will likely be overturned.
Minneapolis is looking to already overturn it. So
exactly.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned.
But it hurt a lot of developers. It hurt a lot of
that as it should. They pulled out.
Yeah, they crushed them.
Pulled out. Yeah. Yep. And the other thing I will say about I actually have, I think of the three of us or four of us, I have rent control in California. It was adopted, I want to say 3 years ago. It might be 4. It's been so long. Rent control actually helps me, hurts the tenants. Because I used to run where I'd only raise rents every 2 years. Now, because of King Newsom, I have to raise rents every year.
Yeah, I get that. I live in, Zuber knows this. I live in Oregon, which is one of the worst states for landlord unfriendliness. And we have the same thing. You can only raise it by a certain percentage. And so if landlords are smart, they just raise it every single year to the maximum.
Yeah, you just have to. Yeah, so not a concern, not a big concern.
But we're not going to invest in Oregon for those reasons, for the tenant friendliness and landlord unfriendliness. My third question has a couple of layers to it, and it has to do with that red state thing, because we're of the same mind. We keep coming back to, we've ruled out a couple of areas out of state to invest in, and we keep coming back to wanting to and looking into investing in Florida. I kind of grew up in Florida, Jacksonville and Orlando mostly. And because of, it being a red state, and I know I still have friends and family there, et cetera, we would really like to look at that. But the insurance issue there is just out of this
crazy.
Yeah. It is crazy, and it's getting crazier by the day. Now, I do know, I read something recently, and it might have been, I follow Twitter, X, I still call it Twitter, religiously. And I saw something, it might have been a retweet by Zuber. And then I started following this guy on Twitter, Bruce Norris.
Oh yeah, Bruce. Yep. Love Bruce.
He made a comment just recently, a week or two ago, about how Florida has many tailwinds in the investing space, in the single family home investing space, and he's investing heavily there.
Yeah.
So that re-piqued my interest in Florida, and so it makes me wonder if somebody like Bruce Norris is investing heavily despite the insurance issues. How do you get around that? And while I'm sort of on this subject, is there a way to mitigate that, offset it, know going in, how to get around it? What are your thoughts? Tell me what your
first and foremost, Bruce Norris is perhaps the best real estate investor I've known. He started in Southern California. He called the California crash. He called the California comeback. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago. He pulled up stakes, started 1031 to Florida. He's now, he's the guy that saved Olivia and I. I gave him credit in my first book. So he's a great follow. And again, he's a data geek. I mean, that's just what he does. He loves data. So I would try to figure out what he's doing. I can guarantee you, without even looking at it, he's not building on the coast. I think Florida is getting a lot of this insurance stuff, Airbnbs and whatnot, because it's affected by water and hurricanes, right? It's just the reality there. But what I would be doing is I'd be poking at where Bruce Norris is building, because he's actually building stuff, and I guarantee you it's not on the coast. Right there are parts of Florida that you can be successful. He's obviously getting insurance. There's a lot of people that follow Bruce Norris. To kind of the questions earlier, is I would try to tap into that network. Bruce Norris puts on webinars all the time. I'd sign up and I'd get on their mailing list, and I think most of them are free. So I would be looking at what he's doing, and not necessarily, investing in whatever he's doing, but I would say, where is he doing it? Bruce Norris is going to know where it's, safest to invest in Florida. And I would cheat. I would copy his homework. I would freaking copy Bruce's homework and go, oh, I have no idea about cities in Florida, so I'll just say Tallahassee. Oh, he's building in Tallahassee. Well, maybe I should have a buy box in Tallahassee. And again, I don't know where he's doing it. I just made that up, but I would cheat off his homework. I absolutely cheat off Bruce anytime.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of answers my question, is how to know the best.
Somebody's doing it. Copy.
Yeah.
Cheat.
Yeah. Okay.
Very, very cool. Thank you, Catherine. Enjoy. And Bruce is awesome. If you ever talk to him, tell him I said hi. He's a great guy.
I will.
I've met him a dozen times. Senya, your name was thrown around earlier on by Millennial Mike.
Yes, hi.
Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you. Very excited. I wouldn't be able to do it without Mike. So thank you, Mike, once again. He's been fundamental in all of my little accomplishments so far. So yeah, big shout out to Millennial Mike. But I do have questions for Dion. Dion, so your bind approach, how would you suggest to implement it if you invest out of state?
So I would use Matt's tweak on the binder strategy that he was doing before he ever heard about me. And that's, and I'm going to do it with Karen for the listing that she's going to send me the email on. I'm going to make PDF versions of the property with the current Redfin or Zillow estimate on the price. I'm going to attach that to an email. Then the next page is going to be a map with the pins of the rentals in the area attached to the email. And then the next 5 pages are going to be rentals in the area with the same number of units and how much they rent for. And then my email will just explain, here's what my current entrance and property taxes are based on this estimated value. Here's the rentals that are available in your area. Here's some examples of rentals that are available and what they're renting for. You're renting for this amount. I can't afford to keep the rents where they are. Those rents might have made sense to the person who owned it before me, but it's based on the new estimated value. Here's what the rents are in the area. Literally end it with, what do you think is fair? It's just having the conversation through email versus in person. It's exactly how I do it with Section 8, right? I just did it with Section 8 for January of this year. I did it in October so that it would go into effect in January. But the conversation happens exactly the same. It actually gives them plenty of time to think. They can look up the properties too and see that the rentals are that way. So it works local, at a distance, with property manager, with Section 8. Just take it instead of
just to be clear, Dion, you're sending that to the PM or the tenant?
If she's investing at a distance and self-managing, it goes to the tenant. If you're using a PM at a distance, I would go to the PM with it and say, look, I see where you think rents are. Here's what the conversation I want to happen with the tenant.
Exactly. Make sense, Senya?
Yes, and you basically just send this PDF to the property manager and ask them to have this conversation with the tenant.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, just to be clear, Senya, you're early in your relationship with your PM. I would have a conversation first, saying, "Hey, I'm going to do the work on this. This is coming your way." You don't want to surprise them, right? So I would call them first. You know, I'd use Mike, right? I'd run this all by Mike, given he knows him. But I'd call the PM and say, "Hey, thank you very much. You're my new PM. I'm going to do this thing that I call the binder strategy. I'm going to do all the work. I'm going to send it to you. Then I want to have another phone call to go over it, see if you have any questions. I don't know the area. Maybe there's something I put on here. It's different, right? So use it to build a relationship. Use it to check customer service. Use it to learn more about the PM. So I would not send it blindly, just to be clear.
No, I speak to my PM all the time. I speak less to Mike now because I just don't have the time to bug him.
Yeah, I get that too. I understand.
My PM.
All right, very cool. Cindy, is that awesome?
Yeah,
very
that
cool.
was it. Thank you.
Awesome. Good job. Congrats again. Travis Laptop.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Michael Zuber, I heard you talk on a video recently about the Burr method not working. I don't know if I got it right, either not anymore or just not as well as it used to. I was going to see if I can get a better explanation on that from you.
So again, I think the Burr strategy is an amazing tool to put in your tool belt. I think there are certain times or eras you will invest through that it makes it a no-brainer. Between 2012 and 2020, it was a no-brainer. The market was so hot that you could do a Burr wrong and be okay. Let me be clear. Burr is possible today. It's harder. The cost of capital is harder. Cash out refis are harder. Loan to values are harder. I consider Burr be an advanced strategy. There are sometimes the market is so good it's easy for everyone. I hate that a lot of Burr people are still saying it's easy to do. That bothers me. And that's why sometimes I get a little cranky when I talk about Burr. I still would do Burr today. If I found a deal that would make sense, I would Burr it all day long. I just don't want people to realize this ain't 2018. So does that make sense?
Yes, I got you. That clears it up for sure. That's what I was thinking, but I just wanted to make sure.
The far
And
better,
then,
the far better strategy, Travis, is a construction loan. It's a far better strategy. It's everything up front. You know, if it appraises as complete up front, you know what your rate is up front. Your rate is locked up front. The money you know is up front. So that's what the elite guys are doing, is they're doing construction loans with rehabs. We're just doing it all up front. So there's no guessing. With Burr, you have to guess at what the rate's going to be. You have to guess at what the appraisal is going to be. You have to guess what the banks are going to be doing at that point. A construction loan, it's done all of the front end. So guys that want to understand their risk and mitigate it, we do construction loans up front. I do my rehabs. I get them done. I use all the bank's money, but it's an as complete appraisal that's done at the time of purchase, not having to wait and see what the market's done in a year from now. That's one of the things.
So are you purchasing with cash, or are you?
Nope. Purchasing with bank loan, just a construction loan. The way
construction loans. Yeah, go ahead.
So let's say it's $100,000 or $500,000 property. And that's what the cost is right now. That's as is. I'm buying it for 500 grand. I'm putting 25% down. So I'm putting 100 grand down. So now it's a $400,000 mortgage, but they say as complete, this thing is worth $700,000. So what they'll do is, instead of me putting 20% down on the 500, I put 20 or 25% down on the 500. I put 25% down on the 700. However, they let me take the remaining money there. They let me take that $150,000 as money that I can then use on the building to make it worth that $700,000. But all your numbers are up front. That's one of the things that we kind of cover in my course and my boot camps, is showing people how to do a construction loan, how to manage it, how to run it, and then how to get your as complete on the other side. That way you effectively did a Burr, and you didn't have to do it with hard money at 12 or 14%. You didn't have to do it with 6 partners, and you didn't have to put yourself at all the risk of what's the market like then? What's the appraisal going to be then? Can I actually pull then? Because it's just like what you see in the stock market with multiples shifting. The same thing happens in the real estate market. It could be 20%. They could be doing 80% loan to values, and then the economy takes a dip and they're doing 65% loan to values, and your money's stuck.
It's stuck, yeah.
And you can't get your money back out.
Yeah, because the only other wrinkle, just to make sure it's not missed, is you're going to get your repair money back in draws.
Yep.
It could be at 25% completion, whatnot. Construction loans, I've done one in my career. Again, all the work's done up front. It's got to make sense. It's got to be a deal. But yeah, it is a better way today, I think, than doing the traditional Burr method.
Yeah, I did 3.
Great. Yeah, I'll have to talk to my lender about that.
Yeah, I did 3 this year, and I've done one over $1 million. So it's absolutely the way to go.
Cool.
All right.
Makes
my
sense?
only other thing is, so I'm more entrepreneurial than my wife, and trying to get her on board has not been easy at all. So we've talked about it, like, at length. We're going to come out to Vegas. So
nice.
I want to get her in front of somebody
fun.
that's got a great story, So any recommendations on that, I would.
Well, you're doing the step, getting her in that room in Vegas. What I need to do. So the first speaker is going to be Jason and Jen Pritchard. Jen is your wife, very conservative. She was in teaching, education. Jason is remarkably entrepreneurial. They're going to talk about their story. They're in my second book, 15 Conversations with Millionaires. There will be plenty of folks there that she can speak with. And the only other thing is, you need to realize she's going to eventually say yes to doing the first deal. You better make sure that first deal is a winner. Your proof of concept must work. But yeah, I think Vegas will be eye-opening, I think.
Yeah, we have 2 long-term rentals right now, and they're working well. I think they're doing great. So I'm just not quite sure why it hasn't clicked with her yet. But
okay, well, yeah, get her in the room, having her. Yeah, make sure she brings questions. Right, the Vegas event is supposed to be the audience asking questions. So if she has some deep burning desire, she can ask Jen Pritchard. She can ask any of the speakers. She can ask them in public or in private, right? She wants to have a one-on-one hallway conversation. All the speakers except one, I think, are going to be there both days. So enjoy the opportunity.
Great, thank you.
Travis, I did a whole series with my wife, Mr. and Mrs. Lumberjack, on my channel.
There you go.
She can see exactly what my wife deals with me. I'm an entrepreneur. There's not a problem I haven't tried to fix. So failed it a lot.
All right. Travis, you good?
Yep, thank you.
Awesome. Steve, up next. Oh, I can take you off
Still
mute.
mute. There you go. Nope.
Let's try that again.
Yep.
There he
Can
is.
you hear me okay?
No, good.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So appreciate everybody, Mike. Appreciate you giving us all this opportunity. I think for me, throughout these 10 weeks, I think I shared before, we moved from California to Texas, Los Angeles area to the Dallas area. And so initially thought was buying in Texas more rentals, but I think someone mentioned too, like insurance is another variable that's come up just on our primary as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like I got my renewal this year. That was fun. And so we're shopping that. And then property taxes was another thing. So I think throughout this 10 weeks for me, what's come up is like Texas is not my market. Even though I live here and we wanted to be here and we're enjoying being here.
Sure.
I think now what I'm doing is probably like Millennial Mike definitely helped with looking at out of market, but it's also kind of a combo of yours, Zuber's as well. Like Oklahoma's 2 hours away.
There you go.
And
Tulsa.
So, that's exactly,
Tulsa.
for sure. Actually finally just came across a realtor that's on YouTube, like we've been talking about, like not having to get on the phone or anything. Just looked at his channel and had a hour discussion with him. And so I'm looking around kind of the surrounding Tulsa area, kind of 30 minutes outside of it.
I like it.
My question, obviously we know we got to do the work. I think I don't want to dance around, right? Like I don't want to spend another 90 days looking at another market. So my plan is to just look in these 30 minutes outside of Tulsa. How many people would you talk to? I've spoken to one realtor. How many people would you talk to in these 90 days while you're doing the work? Because I already knew Texas, right? Like we had shopped around Texas and you know, that was my thing. So I didn't really need to do as much, but here with an out of state market, sort of, right? It's 2 hours.
Yeah.
Now, it's also a little farther, but you know, how many, that's one question.
I go back to my 7 rules. I forget what rule is. I think it's number 6. You got to meet 2 new people a week.
Okay. All right. And then the other thing is like from a financing perspective. So I think Serge was the one. Yeah. I mean, I borrowed on my 401k to buy my Texas home. I got 2.75 and
Nice.
my home appreciated $100,000 since 21. So I don't know that we're going to get that anymore, but you know,
it does work.
Borrowing, it does work. Yeah, it does work. So I have a ton of equity in my house in California. I have a HELOC on that right now. That was my plan. I know what you've talked about as far as paying it back in a year. So my plan was, we've also talked about this. I should have enough put away from the cash flow on that home by like probably June of this year to cover like any issues. Given that we lived in the home, we did a lot of make ready stuff, so shouldn't have anything major there. And my wife, we've kept our overhead low. Got 2 boys, so she's always, her full-time job has been taking care of them, but now they're a little older, so we're talking about the side hustle maybe being her, you know, and going into like a, you know, something not full-time but maybe part-time.
Sure.
My thought was, once we learned Tulsa, using the HELOC and then using the cash flow from our rental in California and then her side hustle to pay that down in a year, and then just kind of rinse and repeat.
Yeah. So again, I want to be clear, right? I love the fact that you're quoting things that I put out there. A year was my thing. I think the more important part of that is I would not buy a second one until it was paid off. right? If it took you 2 years, so be it. But the idea is once you've tapped the HELOC, the goal changes to pay that thing off. I personally set 12 months. I don't know if that's realistic for everyone. If it turned into 24, so be it, right? You've got to pay that off. You don't just stack debt on debt on debt on debt.
Yep. Does anybody else have any kind of thoughts on that as far as like because I'm kind of like in Sturgis like spot where capital, I have access to it, but I don't have a ton of just liquidity where I can just, oh, I got money. Let's buy one, let's buy two, let's buy three. I think I kind of have to this like we've all been talking about.
Yeah, the first 5 years or 10 years of your journey, liquidity is always going to be the issue unless you get good at raising debt. It's just that simple. That's why, Cody and Christian multifamily strategy with what they do. That's why that works for them, is because they're doing a ton of seller financing stuff where they don't have to bring money to the table, but that's usually on bigger assets. You can do it on smaller assets, but again, it's just a different game. But
yeah,
I've put HELOCs on my stuff, on my personal residences. The key is know that the market can shift, know that rates could go to 10, possible. It's not impossible.
Yeah. And the other thing, don't forget, all of us started really slow. I think some folks look at us now and it's like, wow, they're so fast. They're doing deals all the time. Dion, made a decision, didn't even do a deal for the 2 years. And then it took him 18 months to do the next one. So it's been slow for all of us. You're just looking at 4 guys that are somewhere between 8 and 22 years in. So don't feel like you're in a rush, right? Doing one every 2 years isn't bad, isn't terrible.
I think that's something for sure.
Far better to do good deals.
Yep. That's one thing I think for sure. Just for me, like my goal is to be financially free in 10 years. I'm 45 right now, so that's kind of my
possible,
goal.
but just, the first 2 to 4 years suck for everyone. I mean, by suck, meaning it's slow. It never moves as fast as you want. And that's okay. Right.
Cool. All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
You got it, Steve. Thank you very much. Paul, you are up next.
Morning, guys.
Hey.
Morning.
My first question is, I have a couple rentals in St. Petersburg, Florida, one of which is a 9-unit apartment building that I run as part Airbnb short-term rentals and part long-term rentals. I have a manager there, and an employee for the management company. They suggested that I lease a unit to him for a discount so he could do some work and stuff on the property, which was something I wanted, was working out good. Since then, I've cut ties with that management company because I didn't like what they were doing. And this tenant owes me 2 months of rent. He had car problems, so I kind of let it slide. I do have a lease with him, but I do not have a application with a social security number. He has since moved out, and I'm wondering if there's anything I can do to try and recoup that money.
Skip trace him.
Yeah, the only option is you got to skip trace him, which will be hit and miss. I'm guessing because he's in the property management game, he might have I don't know if Florida has a licensing thing. It may, but yeah, skip trace. If you find them, they'll have a social. Then you turn that over to collections.
Okay, so without that's to get the social security number. Without the social security number, I can't
get a judgment. Yeah, nope.
Okay,
you can't get a judgment. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. That answers that question. I own those in Florida, but I live in California. I would really like to expand my portfolio closer to home. The largest city near me is Reno, Nevada.
Oh, okay.
Which is a lot of new commerce and whatnot going to that city. A lot of appreciation. But there's no cash flow to be had.
Yeah.
That I can find. And so the realtors that I talk to, they're like, well, it's an appreciation market. Like nobody cash flows. So, well, maybe not nobody, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a contractor, so I'm looking for anything I can add value to.
Sure.
I'm having trouble making that
Yeah.
work.
So I've looked at Reno, and I think Matt and I did a show like 3 years ago. I put Reno as like one of my top 3 riskiest markets.
Riskiest.
Well, this was 3 years ago, right? Because
3 years
again,
ago,
it was screaming higher. The incomes didn't seem to match it. It now has changed as more commerce has come.
Yeah.
But I do think, and again, not my market, right? I just read a lot of stuff. It does feel like there may be some folks that try to do short-term rentals and Airbnbs that aren't working out anymore. So it would not shock me if by the summertime there were some fully furnished units coming on the market.
Okay.
Right. So I think Reno has some pullback ahead of it. It's not a crash, right?
Yeah.
It's not like a 30% crash
Right.
coming, but there may be a seller or two that are in a situation where they just need out. So my antennas would start raising, looking for opportunities. Now, some of those might be subject to, which I've never done, right? Some of these people may have low interest rates.
Yeah.
I just think where there's great pain, there's great opportunity.
Okay.
I think there will be some sellers in the summer, once we're past the winter skiing season.
Yeah.
That I think Reno, you might be surprised. And the other thing I was thinking about as you're telling that story is, I've been to Reno, I've looked in Reno. I would go out like 30 minutes.
Yes.
And see, I think you'll see very different, right? Reno proper is not 30 minutes outside Reno. It's a very different market.
Right.
Paul, you said you're a contractor?
Yes.
I would look at small multifamily 2, 3, 4 unit stuff, not single family.
Okay.
And I would look at single floor hotel conversion.
Okay, interesting. So they've built tons and tons of apartments in the past couple years.
They
So I'm
did.
a little concerned, is the market flooded with apartments? Hard to say, right?
Again, I think Reno proper, yes, but that's again why I go out 30 minutes. And again, yeah.
Okay, so
I'd be shocked if something's not there.
I own a lot in California that's 45 minutes from Reno. I've considered building a house with an ADU on that. It's commuting distance, but it's out in the sticks kind of, and it's in California. I'd really like to be in Nevada.
Again, I think what I would do there is I'd run a rent survey, kind of rent box. You just never know. I don't know what sticks means. I don't know what context. Somebody lives there. I mean, there's probably some folks, but
yeah,
I'd run the numbers. I'd let math be my friend.
Okay. And then is it worth it to put enough money into the deal to make it a cash flowing deal? Just, keep increasing my down payment until it equals out, just to get into something in an appreciating market?
I think what you're asking me is, hey, if I go into Reno with 20% down, it's an alligator. But if I put 50% down, it cash flows. I think that's what you're asking.
Yep.
That's a personal choice.
Okay.
That's a personal choice.
It also kind of shoots me in the water as far as buying anything else.
Right.
You'll see really, it might not be an alligator anymore, but you'll see a horrible return on capital.
Right.
Return on capital would be weak.
Okay.
Again, I would do the work. I mean, right now we're both looking at this, in what is it, January of 24. I suspect that July of 24 will be different in Reno. That's just one educated guess.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You got it. Van Reeth, you're up next.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
So I guess I'm kind of in the same boat as Steve. So my market right now is Long Beach, California, and then that's not working out. So I'm trying to figure out what market to look at next. Kind of what I'm hearing is that it's kind of easier to copy somebody else's homework, and if that homework they're doing, it's worth it. I guess that's kind of my question.
I actually think there's a question one that you skipped over.
Okay.
I think the question you have to ask yourself is, are you comfortable getting on a plane to having to go see your properties, or do you want to drive? For me, that was a black and white, as you know. I don't know that I've heard that answer from you.
For me, so I don't mind flying out. It just really depends on the location, I guess. And then driving is not that bad. But once you get out of the LA area, then it's not too bad. But,
you got Inland Empire. I mean, so really what you have to sit back and ask yourself, in my opinion, I'll bring in Mike next, is I think you have to decide between out of area, which is what I chose, which is kind of like the earlier example of Texas and Tulsa. To me, that's out of area, right? 2 hours away, 2.5, versus Gary, Indiana. That's, I don't know what it is, 5-hour flight, probably connections. I can't imagine, or maybe I guess you go to Chicago.
Chicago.
I think you just have to figure out what's right for you. I think that's the question to ask first, and then you copy people's homework. It's still about you.
He's not afraid to travel. He's on Tatooine.
that looks far away. Yeah. So I think that's the question: is what would you be okay with?
So part of it is like I do have relatives in Indiana, so we go to there pretty much every
you can write off
summer.
those trips. Yeah, you can write off those trips now because you're going to go see your units. That doesn't suck.
Yeah. So we're in Indiana most summers. So that's one possibility. Then anywhere in, I guess somewhere in California would work, but California is a long state, so it really depends on where. Yeah.
Again, just knowing the more and more we dig in this, I don't know why. I mean, assuming so Indiana, so you have family there, you go there, all pluses. I'm going to assume you have somebody that you won't pay that will drive by your properties and just tell you the truth. That's a big deal for me. Right.
Yeah, so that's going to be near Indianapolis. So that's where the relatives are. So around there.
There you go. Yeah. And again, you're not going to rely on your relatives to property management to do showings, evictions. You're just going to be able to ask them, hey, my property manager said this. Can you just drive by, take a picture? Right. I mean, if that was me, I'd be looking in Indianapolis or maybe, 30 minutes around. I have no idea what's around Indianapolis, but seems like a probable win-win. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's one thing. And then just it is hard to find out like the investors around there, just because I don't know many out there. I know like maybe one or two, but yeah.
Facebook groups.
Facebook, I mean, Indianapolis is huge. It's so quoted everywhere.
Huge. Yeah.
I think if you did a Google search, you'll find dozens of groups, and you just have to be active and integrate. I mean, Mike, what are some things? I mean, you're the king of Gary. There's got to be kings and queens of Indianapolis, I would guess. Where would you go to find them, Mike?
Yeah, I just pulled up 2 groups I'm a part of right now on Facebook: Indianapolis out-of-state investors and Indiana real estate investors. 2 groups that I'm a part of on Facebook. And then, yeah, if you're interested in investing in a distance, you already got local connections to the market in Indiana. That's what I tell people to start with when it comes to picking a market. Okay, well, what markets do you already have some knowledge about, some boots on the ground, somewhere? So if you've already got somebody in Indiana, that's where I would start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Indy's a nice market too. Red state. They've got multifamily. The city's beautiful. It's absolutely expanding. They're pro growth. Like Indianapolis is I don't know that single families will work too well there, but small multi will.
Yeah. Do the work.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of little suburbs around there. And then, there's the bad parts and the good parts of the city. But yeah.
So what I would tell you to do is I'd spend 30 days just trying to find everybody in every group in Indianapolis. This is what I did in Fresno. I didn't know anybody. I spent 30 or 45 days trying to talk to as many people as I could, asking them where to and where not to invest. Out of that list, I got 100 options. The one that popped up most often was Mayfair, and that became my buy box. It was that simple. So 30, 45 days, getting on every Facebook group, asking questions, looking at history. And then, oh, by the way, you can take a trip out to Indianapolis and write it off because, you're going to go do some real estate investing. I'm not an accountant. Talk to your accountant. All right, Van Reeth, sound good?
Yeah.
All right,
great.
Arnold, we're gonna go through Richard, and then we'll let Gabriel come back, and then we're gonna be done. But Arnold, you're up next.
Sure. Thank you, Zuber. If the group would talk on the subject of an experience with building that administrative team and hiring virtual assistants, and when did you start that? And, trying to balance that working in and working on your business, and then trying to figure out, am I going to start early doing that or am I going to do that later on?
Yeah. So I don't think any of us have actually virtual assistants, but we certainly have team members that are local. I have lots of contacts that I talk to every week that have virtual assistants, so I can chime on that in a minute. But why
Because
don't we
Jason
go?
talks about that.
Yeah. I mean, so the people that I talk to would be Jason, Adrian, Omar, Bill Allen. I mean, there's lots of people that I know, so maybe I'll answer this question. Really, what you need to do with virtual assistants is figure out what tasks you need to do in great numbers that have low conversions, i.e., texting, mailing, following up, right? When you get a virtual assistant from the Philippines or Costa Rica or wherever, you're going to pay them $4 or $5 an hour. They're going to do hundreds of things and they're going to have one thing turn out, right? You can't do that because it costs your time and energy. You have to do processes, procedures, templates. You have to follow up because they're out of different time zones. You're going to fire a bunch of them. What I would tell you with virtual assistants, Jason talks about this, is overpay. And by overpay, you don't pay $4, you pay $6 because you want somebody that was trained on somebody else's dime, right? So you don't go somewhere and go, I'm gonna teach you how to cold call. No, you want to pay somebody $6 or $7 an hour that already does 100 cold calls. And oh, by the way, I'm going to give you a $200 bonus for every lead this or lead that. If you pay for expertise and reward behavior, you're going to be well taken care of. So when you think virtual assistants, it's high volumes, low conversion. Those are perfect things to use virtual assistants for, according to Jason, Omar, Adrian, so on and so forth.
I have one that I share. She's awesome.
What do you use them for?
So we use them to convert people over to the property management system. We used her to basically give them instruction of how to file a ticket and how to do all of that sort of stuff.
Ah, got it. Yeah. High volume, low value.
Yeah.
Yep.
Brilliant. I mean, it was a huge value to the organization, but I didn't want to spend my time doing that. I didn't want my wife's time doing that. So she was awesome. Sending out, I mean, just really anything, like even sending out letters of a letter that we've created where it was like, there were kind of like 30 or 40 buildings that we liked, where it was just like, hey, I want that letter to go out to these addresses.
Right.
Boom. She does that, takes care of that.
Yeah.
So
now, so let's ask this. What number did you bring on the virtual assistant? You did not have a VA the first 10 or 20 units, I would guess.
No, in the last 12 months.
There you go.
The last 12 months. Yeah.
And again, it's for high frequency, low turn.
Yeah, I mean, back when you and I started Zoom, there was no such thing, right? Exactly. Like, I mean, those countries didn't even have internet, so, and certainly not reliable internet. So that would be one thing that I would use today, Arnold, that would vastly increase the speed by which you can grow. Because that was one of the things where, when Mike started, it was him and Olivia doing everything. When I started, it was just me doing everything. And so now there's a bunch of these like low dollar value things that are massive impacts to the business that you can absolutely source out. And I mean, honestly, I pay, I think it's like 12 or 14 bucks an hour, but she's worth it. Like, I'm not going to, the difference between 4 and 6, the difference between 6 and 14, don't care, because I send her an email with everything and it just gets done. And it gets done well.
The one thing I want to highlight, Arnold, that I see a lot of today is I think a lot of people go to VAs as a cure for lack of process.
Oh, totally true. Totally true.
So I would not hire a VA until you have the process and procedures in place that you could turn over and somebody can follow. I know plenty of people in the real estate game that see Jason Pritchard and what he does with his 4 VAs in the Philippines. And it's like, hey, I want to do some of that. What you don't realize is he built processes and procedures and a workbook for them to follow, and he can manage to
create a job description.
Yeah. A VA is not permission to not do the work yourself first.
Correct.
Make sense, Arnold?
Oh, very good. Because of, we're talking about working on your business. And then if you're doing all of it, you're working in it. Not necessarily working on.
Yeah. Yeah. But to that point, I believe you have to work in it to figure out the process, document it, and then turn it over, in my opinion.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Got a follow-up question, or you good?
Oh, that's good, because I think it's 10 o'clock.
All right. I pushed my 10 o'clock back to 10:15. So we got 9 minutes for 2 more. Richard, thank you for patiently waiting. Richard.
Yeah, no, thank you. So I had just a couple questions. I'll try
Please.
and go through them quickly, but I want to start off by saying thank you for the journey that I've taken over the last 10 weeks. So
Nice.
this is the thing, right? So the idea of a buy box, the idea of the spreadsheet so that I know what an average deal actually is, and that sort of rental box has led me through what do I want to do, right? So I started off basically with 5 buy boxes, and then I went to 1 buy box, started listening to the lumberjack landlord because I was like, well, I'll do a bunch of Section 8 and I could buy a bunch of houses. And after talking and listening to Millennial Mike, Lumberjack, I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to deal with that situation. So that then led me into my actual buy box right now.
Okay.
And I'm learning what an average deal is so that I know what a good deal is, right? So
Okay.
I'm there. So now that I am there, I'm looking for a few different things. So the way that I'm finding some of these deals is I'm starting to talk to a lot of like mortgage brokers because I'm looking for like dead leads. I'm looking for certain people that they see that they can't do business with that would be a good fit. Because also in that journey, I didn't know what I didn't know. So there are so many strategies available to solve problems for people. So anyway, with the mortgage broker, I want to give them a referral. I think I have a fee structure that makes sense, but just the logistics of like, hey, if you help me get a lead and I close on it, you get $1,000, you get whatever, right? So one, a contract that work? Should I do sort of like a JV type joint venture kind of thing where I say, hey, if I close on this house, you get a referral fee? Do I, basically like hire them as like a marketer, and give them like $1,000 or whatever
I
marketing
would
fee? Like, how do you
again.
deal with that?
So I've never done this with a mortgage broker, but I've done strategies like this with folks. I guess in this case, I might actually set up a tier. I would pay them some increment for a qualified lead. You get to tell them what a qualified lead is. Check these 4 boxes. I pay $50 for every qualified lead. And then B, if I can convert that lead to a deal, I pay another number that is obviously much higher. And then I wouldn't even create a contract. I would create a handshake agreement. I would pay them when they brought over the first couple of leads. If they brought you something that wasn't a qualified lead, I would educate them on why it wasn't a qualified lead. But I would pay them the day I got a qualified lead. They'd see, I'm just going to make up a number, $50. I'd PayPal them, Zelle it, whatever their preferred method is, so that it rewards the behavior that you want. So I would probably do a multi-tier structure, 1 low volume. And again, I'd be very clear, qualified lead, not lead. You get to tell them what a qualified lead is and then reward said behavior. And then if you close something, they should know that they'll get a bigger number. That's how I would do something like that.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. And then the other one is looking for a recommendation. So I want to do a HELOC and I'm looking for a long-term lending partner for my real estate investment journey. I have a bunch of my own cash, and I know I'm probably going to use some private money lenders eventually, but I also want to have, extra buckets that I can draw from if need be. So
And now this equity
I want
line
to do
would
a
be on
HELOC.
on your primary?
Yes.
Or no?
Yeah, it's going to be on my primary.
So what I would do for that is I'd go to whatever bank I have the most money at. They're interested in keeping you as a client. It would be that simple. And then the second thing in your statement, I would not look for a long-term lending partner. It's in today's environment, it's about getting the best rate. If we were in 2010, absolutely. You want to have that relationship because there's so few lending. But today I would, with the primary, I would go to whoever has most of my money. And then when I found deals to get done, I would go to a broker and see who could get the best deal. I don't see much relationship building. Now, Lumberjack, back in 2020 and 2021, he had relationships and he was able to create lending products and all of that. Most of us aren't there. Most of us don't have the stroke for that. Kind of my thoughts there, Richard.
Small local banks, 1 to 2 billion AUM, assets under management. They're more apt to move with a young up and comer in the market that wants to impact things, because, and then I would even look at some credit unions if they have a taste for it, because their mission is that it's mission driven. Small community banks in the community, of the community, for the community. Credit unions are exactly the same way, but they even put an extra twist on it, where because they're not profit, you're likely going to get a better rate with them.
There you go.
Okay,
Sound good,
well,
Richard?
That sounds fantastic. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Enjoy the journey. Gabriel, we're going back to you, man. Our last and final questions. How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. Thank you, guys. Try to make it quick. So possibly have to talk about my second question, possibly have my first deal. And so I took a little bit of Dion's advice, and I kind of grew my buy box a little bit by like 30, 45 minutes really for myself. And then I took a little bit of Millennial Mike's advice, like, okay, well, maybe because I'm a contractor, I could probably simply do a little bit of the work or whatnot. And so I ran into then I started to dive into Matt's stuff, because I ran into a deal that's a potential. Basically it's a house, 3-2, but with 5 units behind it. Ooh. And so it's
like
it's in Texas, it's a condo, whatnot. The price is $365,000. If I put full, I don't have the full cash to do it, but if I did it all cash, it would potentially be about an 18% yield. If I didn't do the full cash, if I did with, this is the first time I even reached out to Velocity also, because like I said, I have my own business, so it's very hard for me to get a conventional. But if I did with even, like, let's say Velocity, and I'm assuming their rates, because he hadn't contacted me back yet, but let's say 8 to 10%, then it's almost like 7 to 8%. And my average is about 4%. And I've been looking for a 6 or 7 to get my first deal. And this one, right off the bat, with the high interest mortgages and all that stuff, I'm at 7 or 8. And so my question really is basically a little bit for all of you guys, is like, what am I missing? I've walked it. I assumed monthly, with me assuming low, let's say $500 a unit, because it's a 1 little bedroom apartment, the 5 of them, and I can still rent out the house. $500, bring that $4,500 or so a month. Then I walked it with my realtor, and I don't know if this was staged or not, but I saw the little receipts, and he was charging $750 a month on a 1 bedroom. This is Conroe, Texas. This is not, or it's for closer to Huntsville. It's not high at all. It's very small market.
So I don't know about. I think Matt's had experience here. I love deals like that. I've done.
Oh my word!
I have 6, 7, 8 properties that qualify something similar. House in front, units in the back. Those are good for investors, because owner occupants won't be there. They don't want to compete, so that's good.
Is this too good to be true, I guess? Or what am I missing?
It's a unicorn, but unicorns exist.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things. So let's tell you some things to look for. I would look at gas and electric meters.
Yep.
Because I don't know when it was built. They may be shared. That's a hassle.
Okay.
I would look at parking. Make sure there's parking for each tenant, because that could be a hassle. If the house is not separated from the units, I would add fences to create that separation. I would check mechanicals and roof, obviously. I would look for deed restrictions. What else? I would definitely want to get the leases. I do think that was staged, the 750 nonsense. I think that's staged. I want leases, not silly receipts. Okay. I would do a rent box. I would make it, just because they tell you it's worth 750 and they give you a piece of paper that's 750. If you do your rent box, as Matt talks about, it comes back at 500. You found a liar. Liars happen.
Yep.
Yeah, and even if I do rent it at 500, that was my assumption before.
I was going to say, you're still crushing it.
I'm still.
I would start doing the work, my friend. I would get interested.
Those deals are unbelievably hard to find. Where you find, because I mean, where I live, that asset is probably worth $1.4 million where I live.
Yeah.
But
this is
you know,
the
obviously
guy
all the
that-
rents are different and everything changes, but anytime you can find that single family house, but look at zoning. There might be the opportunity to subdivide after you've increased the rents on the apartments. There might be the opportunity to subdivide, sell the house off for 250 grand, and then you owe everything else for 100 grand.
Yeah.
You know, there's all sorts of ways to, you know, slice and dice that thing that could, you know, be, you do a deal like that a year for every 3 years and you're retired at your 10-year period, no problem.
Let me give you one more thing I would do, just because I feel like it. I would also call Convoy Home Loans.
Okay.
Because they've told me, now I've never done this, but I trust them because I know the two owners, and see what they could do on a 6-unit. Because they can lend, they're telling me they could do 30-year fixed on 6 units and their rates will be lower than Velocity. It's worth a phone call. I know Velocity can do the deal, but they'll probably be 9 or 10%. I would check Convoy just to see if they could do 7 or 8. I don't know that they can, but it's worth a phone call. I would do both.
Yeah, and I tried to. I mean, is there any way that I can pull more information? I did pull from some information. He's from Dallas. It's 4 or 5 hours away. Is he trying to get out of the business? Why is he selling it for so cheap?
Listing agent. Have your agent call them, or you can go through the listing agent to get all those. Yeah. Why is he selling? Is he tired? Is he 1031ing? It sounds like he's far away, so that, I mean, that could be a. The other thing I would ask, the other data point that I would want to know is when he bought it. I'd want to know that, because did he buy it in 1980 and he's sitting on a fully depreciated asset? Did he buy it in 2020 and he's seen great appreciation? I'd want to know when he bought it, definitely. And also, I'd probably want to know his debt, because just because he bought it in 1980 and a lot of us think it would be paid off, maybe he took out a loan and it's coming due. I want to look for pressure points. So yeah, I would be digging into this unit.
And is that the listing agent? I mean, can I go through the listing agent to ask those type of questions, or do I need to make an offer first? Or
no, you can ask. No, I would call him up. I would be straight up. And again, it's up to you whether you go to listing agent or buying agent, either way. But I would say, these are the things I want to know. I'm interested. I've walked it already. These are the kind of questions I have. You know, by the way, I would tell them I'm going to get a loan, so my lender is going to want to know these things. I just want to prep them ahead of time. Yeah.
Gotcha. Awesome.
Yeah. And by the way, you might be able to type it in Zillow or Redfin and see when he bought it, because it'll be, I don't know how it's zoned, right? If it's zoned residential, it'll pop up, but it might be zoned commercial. And again, you won't know until you type in the address.
That zoning could literally make it a massive deal.
It certainly, and then if you can convert it later.
And it's got room to grow. It's got it's an acre, and I could potentially put another 5 units.
Now you're just cheating. That's
like,
I could build another 5, but I got to figure out if it's a septic or not, and if city sewer. Then
septic. Yeah. You got to figure that out.
Yeah.
You got some work to do, but when these deals come across, go, dig.
Fast.
Basically, look for a reason not to do the deal, i.e., it's on septic, i.e., it used to be a gas station that got converted and there's ground contamination. I mean, I've seen crazy things.
Yeah.
In my time. So basically, when you find a unicorn to steal Matt's idea, you're looking for a reason not to do it, because sometimes unicorns are just horses with a stupid thing taped to it.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
True story.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Gabriel, did that close it?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All righty, guys. First, Matt, Dion, Mike, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of individual shows. Thank you for being a part of Day 10. Thank you for being a part of One Rental at a Time, the private Facebook group. All 3 of you are amazing. We will see all 3 of you in Vegas. And for all the students that did this one and done 10-year journey, it was fun. I learned a lot. I love the questions. I know I will never do a 10-day one again, because it just consumes so much of my brain power and energy. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad I did it once, but now I know I won't do it again. So have an amazing day. You all are amazing. This will be up if you want to watch the replays, probably later today or tomorrow. Thank you for being here. Take care. Bye.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Bye, guys. Take care.